Chapter 1376. You look good with anything. Yichen looked at her gently. The eyes of the stall owner next to him lit up. Little brother, you're right. Even if it's just a wooden hairpin, it'll look extremely exquisite on your head. Su Yuhan revealed a happy expression when she heard that. Let's go. Yichen smiled. Just when he was about to leave while holding her hand, he suddenly saw a commotion at the end of the road. The black mass of people immediately spread out on both sides of the street, creating an extremely spacious path. Then an extremely mighty group of people walked over. There were less than 100 people, but their bodies were filled with monstrous, murderous aura. The most surprising thing was that they were all women. Behind them, there was a sedan chair being protected. It's Princess Zhang's wedding team. The stall owner next to Yi Chun seemed to have recognized something. He said to Yi Chun immediately, "Little brother, move aside." Princess Zhang? Yi Chun was surprised. However, his gaze did not move away from the sedan chair because he could sense the aura of an old friend from it. The stall owner could not help but explain, "Little brother, you're an outsider, so you don't know that Dongzhong City used to be called Dongzhong Village. It said that there was an immortal there, and the current Dongzhong City's Princess Zhang is that immortal's disciple. Then who is she marrying?" Yi Chun said, while smiling. The stall owner said, "I heard that it's a young prince from the capital's royal family. However, I heard that this young prince married into our Dongzhong City. He did not believe this rumor. After all, in the eyes of poor people like them, the descendants of the royal family were the descendants of the heavens. How could they lower themselves to marry into a small city? Little brother, you'd better move aside." The stall owner said kindly. Although Princess Zhang has a gentle personality, the female guards under her aren't to be trifled with. However, Yi Chun did not move at all. He looked at the sedan chair that was being escorted by the crowd quietly. A smile appeared at the corner of his lips. Is this girl finally married? Nay. Seeing that the road was blocked, the female commander at the front immediately pulled the reins and shouted at Yi Chun, "Who's there? Today is the day the princess is getting married. Get out of the way." At that moment, everyone on both sides of the street looked at Yi Chun. They were pointing at him and discussing. Even the previous stall owner retreated far away. "Have you reached the foundation establishment stage? You're pretty hardworking." Yi Chun did not move in the face of a reprimand. There was relief in his eyes as he disappeared into thin air with Su Yuhan. Seeing two living people suddenly disappear, everyone was shocked. The stall owner's mouth was wide open. An immortal! The stall owner only reacted after a long time. His throat moved a few times, and then he bowed his head. "Immortal, I never thought that I would be able to see an immortal in this lifetime. Immortal even bought something from me." At this point, he suddenly felt a heavy weight in his pocket. He subconsciously took a look, and what he saw almost made him faint. Spirit stones. There were more than a dozen spirit stones. Not only him, but all the female soldiers who were opening the path were also stunned and could not react for a moment. At that moment, a loud voice came from the sedan chair. "Sister Lan, what happened?" The female commander called Sister Lan immediately snapped back to her senses. She got off her horse and walked to the sedan chair, stammering as she explained what had happened. Before she could finish, a woman in a wedding dress shot out from the sedan chair. The woman's eyes trembled as she looked around. "Is that you?" At that moment, all the female soldiers who were protecting her revealed expressions of disbelief. They had never seen their princess lose her composure like that. "Since you're here, why didn't you see me?" The woman in the wedding dress ignored everyone's gazes. She seemed to be crying and excited, but most of all, she seemed to be lost. In the Daluo dynasty, Yi Chun and Su Yuhan stood side by side on an official road 1,000 kilometers away from Dongzhong City. Su Yuhan looked at Yi Chun with a forced smile. "The lady in the sedan chair earlier should be the blacksmith's daughter who saved you, right? You even got married to her." Yi Chun bit the bullet and nodded. Su Yuhan smiled slyly. "Now that you've seen her getting married, have you ever regretted it? If I were you, it's not too late to chase after her now." How could Yi Chun not know that she was teasing him? He could not help but force a smile. "Stop teasing me." "Sure." Su Yuhan clearly did not plan to let him go. She gritted her teeth and said, "Now, bring me to your third lover, and I'll let you go. Ancient desolate realm, northern region." The great dynasty had already unified the vast northern region. All the officials and the people of the country worshipped the empress as a god. However, at that moment, the palace of the great dynasty was filled with gloom. All the ministers were kneeling outside the empress's bedroom with sorrow in their eyes. The empress of the great dynasty was suffering from a serious illness. She had been unconscious for 3 consecutive days and had not eaten or drunk anything. Countless people were praying for the empress silently. Meanwhile, a cold lady in a dragon robe was lying on the dragon bed in the bedroom at that moment. The lady's face was skinny and her eyes were sunken. "Your Majesty, the imperial astronomer has built an altar and is praying to the heavens for you." A palace maid was holding a bowl of ginseng soup. She knelt on the ground and said in a trembling voice while crying, "Please eat some. Please take care of your body. I can't live anymore." Yun Yi, who was lying on the dragon bed, spoke with all her might. She looked at the people kneeling below with her sickly eyes and said weakly, "Chun Tao, get the minister here. I have something to tell him." The palace maid named Chun Tao's eyes were sore. She held back her tears and walked out quickly. Soon, she brought an old man in luxurious clothes with white hair in a short while. The old man knelt hard despite his old age. "I, the minister of the Ministry of Rights, Su Chongling, greet your Majesty. May the heavens bless your Majesty's health and longevity." Minister Su Yun Yi said in a trembling voice, "Write a will for me. I don't have any children. After I die, the throne will be passed on to the daughter of the former king of Langya, Lu Fei, the great general of the army. At the same time, order the Imperial Army and Imperial Army to use force to seal off the Imperial City and cooperate with General Lu's ascension. If there are any objections, kill. Your Majesty." The old man kowtowed to the ground, extremely sorrowful. "Do you want to defy the decree?" Hearing this, the old man could only slowly stand up and accept the decree from the side. His hands trembling, he wrote quickly. Yuni looked at the palace with lifeless eyes. She wasn't afraid of death, and she didn't have many regrets. The only regret was that after that person left, she never saw him again, and there was no news of him at all. And now that she was about to die, she could only bury these feelings that were hidden in the depths of her heart. Just as the old man was about to stamp the jade seal, there was suddenly the sound of hurried footsteps coming from outside. "Your Majesty, great news, great news." The person who came was the commander of the Imperial Army. He knelt heavily on the ground and held something with both hands. "A wandering Taoist asked me to give this to your Majesty. He said that it can save your Majesty." When he looked again, the thing in his hand was a sachet. The word "E" was engraved on the sachet with golden lines. Yun Yi, who was originally on the verge of death, stood up in shock. She stared at the sachet, and her body trembled violently. "Where is he? After that person handed this to me, he left on a cloud." The commander of the Imperial Army said respectfully, "Looks like he doesn't want to see me." Yin Yi smiled bitterly and sat down heavily. She sighed faintly. "Forget it. As long as I know that he's fine, I'm satisfied." On that day, there was good news from the great dynasty. Her Majesty had recovered. Not only that, she even went to the court to deal with national affairs in high spirits. As for Her Majesty's sudden recovery, there were countless secrets among the people. Only a few people in the palace that day knew the truth. In the great dynasty's capital, Su Yuhan held Yi Chen's hand. She looked rather pale. "Yi Chen, I'm tired. Let's go back." "All right. We'll register our marriage when we return to Earth. I'll give you a grand wedding." Yi Chen smiled lightly and took a step forward while holding her hand. He teleported and disappeared from the Imperial City instantly. He was really in love with this woman. She did not mind the existence of the 3 women. Instead, she urged him to come and take a look. Clearly, she wanted to fulfill his Tao heart. At the same time, in the ruins of a Huang kingdom in the eastern wilderness, the Patriarch of Hell stood facing a tombstone for a long time. On the tombstone were the words "Tomb of Empress Jiang Lei of a Huang Kingdom." The patriarch is leaving. The patriarch of hell had a complicated expression as he muttered, "The patriarch has always been a playboy and unrestrained, but you died for me. Don't worry. When the patriarch returns to the cultivation world, he will start looking for your reincarnation. When the time comes, the patriarch will personally help you unlock the memories of your reincarnation and bring you onto the path of cultivation. You will have a place in my harem." After saying that, he left quietly. On a barren island in the Tianfeng Sea area, Yi Chun descended from the sky with Su Yuhan and landed before everyone. He lifted his head and looked at them. He could not help but say in surprise, "Where's the patriarch?" Hall Master North Yun and the rest had returned, but the patriarch was not around. Yi Shuang said, "The patriarch said he had to do something private." Before he could finish speaking, the void in front of everyone suddenly distorted, and then the patriarch of Yellow Spring slowly walked out. If one took a closer look, they would realize that he looked a little lonely. Yichen walked over and patted his shoulder. Then he took a deep breath in. "Let's go. It's time to return to Earth." With that, he waved his sleeve, and a huge star-like wheel appeared in the air. It was the star-fixing plate. As soon as the star-fixing plate rose into the air, it grew to 3,000 meters in size. Countless starlight surged on it, and it was extremely vast. "Let's go." Yi Chun ordered and took the lead to step onto the star-fixing compass while holding Su Yuhan's hand. Meanwhile, dozens of figures follow behind him. End of this chapter. Chapter 1377. In the desolate universe, in the dim starry sky, there was not a trace of human habitation. There was a planet that was specially taken care of by the sun. As far as the eye could see, the ground seemed to be the product of the eruption of magma. It was reddish-brown, cold, desolate, distant, and deathly silent. Numerous protruding boulders from the ground seemed like numerous desolate tombstones. As a shocking storm descended, like a comet falling from the sky, dozens of figures finally appeared. "Where are we?" Dozens of figures had just stabilized their footsteps when they immediately raised their eyes and observed their surroundings. However, the desolate scene that entered their eyes caused many people to be at a loss. The group was none other than Yi Chun and the rest. Yi Chun put away the star-fixing compass and spread out his divine consciousness. He could sense everything within 1,000 miles around him. Su Yuhan grabbed his hand tightly and looked around while clenching her teeth. "Yi Chun, where are we?" "Mars." Yi Chun said slowly, "We've landed on Mars." In ancient times, Mars was called Mars. I think the time-fixing compass left behind by Yi Dongli was wrong and brought us here. This is Mars? Yi Hai and Wulan were completely dumbfounded. They didn't know about Mars, but they only knew about it from television. At their age, there were many things waiting to be done in China, and they were vigorously developing the people's livelihood. The first country to land on Mars was the former Soviet Union's Mars 1. However, Mars 1 was lost later on. After that, the United States and Korea began to launch space exploration, sending out probes and satellites one after another. Who would have thought that they would actually descend on Mars from this place that was once so far away from them? Then what should we do? Su Yuhan looked at the blue planet deep in the universe and said nervously, "You must know that Mars is over 50 million kilometers away from Earth. That doesn't matter." Yi Chun said while smiling, "Our flying speed is more than 1,000 times faster than a rocket. At most, we'll reach Earth in a little more time." At this point, he seemed to remember something. "It's just that we've used up a lot of spiritual energy on our way here from the ancient barren world. Why don't we recover first?" "All right." Everyone nodded and took out their spirit stones to recover. The distance between the ancient barren world and Mars was more than 40 million kilometers. There were also spatial cracks along the way. Everyone's spiritual energy was almost depleted. At that moment, Meng Meng, who was in Wulan's arms, struggled down and ran toward Yi Chun. "Daddy, I want to see Mars." "All right." Yi Chun smiled and picked her up immediately. Then, he held her hand and walked into the distance. Along the way, He explained all sorts of knowledge about Mars to the little girl. After the Patriarch of Hell and the rest recovered their spiritual energy, they followed closely behind Yi Chun with Yi Hai and Wu Lan. At this moment, someone exclaimed and pointed into the distance, "Look, what's that?" Everyone immediately looked in the direction of the sound and saw that there was a huge wreckage in the depression in front of them. At this moment, it had already been corroded. "It's a warship." The Patriarch of Hell took the lead and walked over to take a look. He could not help but turn a look at Yi Chun. "Fellow Yi, it's a crashed space battleship." The battleship was huge, and its hull was polished with special materials. It had countless large firing ports, and there was even an energy cabin at the bottom of the battleship. However, there was no one inside. Yi Chun fixed his gaze on the red and white flag on the hull. He could not help but say, "It's a U.S. warship. It's indeed a U.S. warship. Could it be that a U.S. warship crashed here? It doesn't seem like it." Yi Chun shook his head and said, "The U.S.'s technology has always been leading the world. It's unlikely that it would crash. Moreover, even if it crashed, what about the people in the cabin?" The Patriarch of Hell immediately reacted and quickened his pace to continue investigating. Soon, he found another spaceship. There was a Chinese flag engraved on the spaceship. A spaceship from China. Yi Chun squinted slightly. He saw that the spaceship was exactly the same as the previous battleship. It was severely damaged, and there was not a single person in the cabin. The only difference was that there were many runes engraved on the spaceship. However, the runes had long collapsed. Continue searching. For some reason, Yi Chun suddenly had a bad feeling. The North Sea Temple Master and the rest immediately spread out and searched the surface of Mars. They discovered spaceships and battleships from many countries, but they were all broken and disintegrated. What's going on? Could it be that the countries in the world are fighting for supremacy over Mars? Yi Chun was getting more and more uneasy. At that moment, Shi Qianhan's sorrowful voice came from afar. "Brother Yi, look here." In front of him stood a huge tombstone. On the tombstone were densely engraved names and words. There were Chinese, English, Korean. The space has changed drastically, and the enemies from outer space have arrived. The fate of humans on Earth is in danger. The countries of the world have formed an alliance to fight against the enemies from outer space. However, the technology that we are proud of cannot withstand the flying swords, talismans, and spells of the enemies from outer space. Yi Chun looked at the words quietly. His heart was heavy because the people buried here were countless elites from all over the world. There were more than 3,000 people. Shi Qianhan took a deep breath in and looked at him. "Brother Yi, looks like the enemies from outer space have finally arrived while we were away." Yi Hai and Wu Lan felt as if a huge rock was hanging in their hearts. "I wonder how Yi Wan and the rest are doing, and how our motherland is doing." Right at that moment, the Patriarch of Green Spirit and the rest sent a voice transmission talisman. "Heavenly Lord Yi, there are many tombstones here." Everyone hurriedly looked over and saw. Tombstones. They were desolate, tragic, dead, and bleak. Yi Chun took a deep breath in and walked to a tombstone. He lowered his head and looked at the inscription on it. "I'm Taoist Lei Yong, the sect master of the Tao sect of Shang Santian in China. I've joined hands with many fellow Taoists from Shang Santian to intercept the foreign lands. However, the enemies from outer space are coming aggressively. We can only serve our country with our broken bodies. The sect master of the Kunlun Ruins Devil sect, Ing Feng, killed 5 early-stage nascent soul cultivators, 2 mid-stage nascent soul cultivators, and 1 late-stage nascent soul cultivator. In the end, he self-destructed and severely injured a perfected nascent soul cultivator. The sect master of the Kunlun Ruins Ghoul sect, Ba Liming, led the powerhouses of the Ghoul sect and fought here for 3 days and 3 nights. All of them died in battle, and not even their corpses were left. The sect master of the Star sect, Xing Yuanzi, sacrificed the Star sect and cast a heaven-defying spell. He summoned a meteor to kill a perfected nascent soul cultivator here. The sect master of the Spirit Talisman sect, Essence Talisman. Everyone fell silent as they looked at the epitaphs on the tombstones. The atmosphere in the surroundings suddenly became extremely oppressive. Endless sorrow emanated from Yi Chen's body. He knew all the names on the tombstones. These people had once been his enemies, but in the face of Earth's crisis, they were still fearless and chose to die for a just cause. This was the shared destiny of mankind. This was a Chinese martial artist who dared to fight and die. Sure, Qianhan's face was extremely pale, and his entire body was trembling. Even though he had not experienced the tragic battle back then, he could still feel it through the tombstones. When Yi Chen's gaze stopped on the last tombstone, he could not help but close his eyes. Tears welled up in his eyes. Yi Wushuang knelt heavily in front of the tombstone, almost choking with sobs. It was the peak master of the Kunlun Ruins' 9th peak, Elder Qing Xian. I'm the peak master of the Kunlun Ruins' 9th peak, Qing Xian. In the winter of 2019 AD, the foreign enemies invaded, and China was the first to bear the brunt. In order to kill the enemy's soul formation powerhouses, I used myself as bait to buy time for China's God shooting cannon. I carved this tombstone before I died. If the future generations of China see it, I hope they won't let us down. Blurg. Yi Chen's lips moved slightly, and he spat a mouthful of blood in the end. Dead. All the upper echelons of Shang Santian had died in battle. Even Elder Qing Xian, who had helped him before, was dead. Elder Qing Xian. Yi Wushuang was extremely sorrowful. He would never forget that when he was alone in the Kunlun Ruin sword sect, it was Elder Qing Xian who took him in. He could not forget that when he became the sword sect's enemy, it was Elder Qing Xian who protected him regardless of his life. Su Yuhan held Yi Chen's hand tightly and said with a sad expression, Yi Chen, I'm sorry, I'm fine. Yi Chen took a deep breath in and bowed solemnly to the tombstones before him while trembling. Everyone have a safe journey. I swear that if I don't slaughter all the people from the outer realm, I'm not a human. That killing intent caused the sky to change color. Yi Wushuang, Shi Qianhan, the Patriarch of Hell, and the rest bowed. Even the Patriarch of Green Spirit and the rest were no exception. Yi Chen stood up and walked over slowly. He put all the tombstones into his sleeve with trembling hands and muttered, Everyone, I'll bring you home today. You're heroes, and your souls shouldn't have left you. At that moment, the sound of air being torn apart could be heard from afar. The Patriarch of Hell could not help but say, Someone's here. Huangfan. That's the place where the natives of the celestial burial planet died that I told you about before. The lowly natives of the celestial burial planet overestimate themselves. How dare they stop us from descending to the celestial burial planet? I'm going to pee on their tombstones in front of everyone. 2 cold laughs were heard. Yi Chen's expression was terrifyingly calm. Soon, 2 rays of light shot over and revealed 2 young men. The 2 of them were dressed strangely. They were different from Yi Chen and the rest. However, there was ruthlessness and cruelty between their brows. Both of them were a golden core. Someone got here before us? The 2 of them were shocked when they saw Yi Chen. One of the burly young men could not help but step forward and say, I'm Huang Fan, a disciple of the Violet Planet's Huang family. May I know where you're from? However, what caused his expression to change was that none of them spoke. They were all staring at him coldly, and their gazes were terrifying. Oh no, they're from the celestial burial planet. Huang Fan seemed to have sensed something, and his expression suddenly changed. Then, he rode on the sword Gleam and tried to escape. I want him alive. Yi Chen turned around slowly. There was no emotion in his voice. End of this chapter. Chapter 1378. How could the 2 golden core cultivators escape from Yi Chen and the rest? They were captured almost effortlessly. Yi Chen's expression was extremely cold after searching their souls. It turned out that a month after he went to the ancient desolate realm, Earth's space barrier had collapsed, completely exposing Earth to the universe. Then, it triggered the invasion of the foreign enemies. The foreign enemies were beyond Yi Chen's previous understanding. There were 8 galaxies descending from the starry sky, and countless starry sky sects were attacking Earth together. The 2 people whose souls were searched came from the Violet Planet. On that day, Earth fell into unprecedented panic. When someone woke up, he realized that the entire world had changed drastically. The starry sky sects, the return of the Mayan civilization, the arrival of the 100 races, and the aliens on that day, Many small countries in the West used all their strength, but they could not resist the vanguard of the foreign enemies. They were destroyed on the spot. Only China, the United States, and other large countries survived. It was also on that day that the entire world sounded the alarm. Various countries abandoned their former enmity and formed a community with a shared future for mankind. They used all their resources and sent countless technological forces to intercept in space. As for the cultivators on Earth, be it from the East or the West, there were many who dared to fight and die. They headed to Mars, the Moon, and other nearby galaxies to face the foreign enemies without hesitation. The battle was extremely tragic and unprecedented. There were cosmic beasts that opened their bloody mouths and swallowed nuclear bombs. There were foreign powerhouses that split battleships with their swords. There were aliens that transformed into the upper echelons of various countries to disrupt the battle. At that moment, the world had no choice but to admit that the nuclear weapons and other scientific and technological powers that they were proud of were too insignificant in front of the foreign enemies. In the end, the foreign enemies successfully descended on Earth. There was no more information in the minds of the two Golden Core cultivators. It was probably their first time coming here from their mother planet due to their low status. When Yi Chun told everyone everything he knew, the world suddenly cooled down. There was a gloomy atmosphere. Endless sorrow covered the sky. Whether it was Su Yuhan, Yi Hai, Shi Qianhan, or the other Earthlings, their hearts were extremely heavy. Earth was their home planet. There was their country and their loved ones there. The Patriarch of Hell sighed softly and looked at Yi Chun with a serious expression. "Fellow Yi, have you ever thought about why these foreign enemies are invading Earth at all costs?" His words immediately reminded everyone of this. The Patriarch is right. Shi Qianhan took a deep breath and smiled bitterly. From what we know so far, these enemies are only stronger than the Purple World. Earth isn't even as strong as the ancient barren world. Why would they pay such a price to invade Earth? It's not that I haven't thought about it. Yi Chun said seriously. This question has appeared in my mind more than once. However, I suspect that it has something to do with the ancient name of Earth. Celestial Burial Star? Shi Qianhan seemed to have thought of something, and his expression changed slightly. He could not help but ask, could it be that Earth really buried immortals in the past? Everyone's spirits were shaken when they heard this. Immortals, these two words were too distant and ethereal for everyone. If immortals were really buried on Earth, it would subvert everyone's understanding. That's just a guess. Yi Chun nodded lightly. He could not help but look at the little girl Qianqian next to him. At that moment, she was staring at everything around her in a daze. Her thin body could not stop trembling. "Qianqian, what's wrong?" A gleam flashed through Yi Chun's eyes. He then walked over quickly and tapped between her brows with his finger. "Big brother, I don't know either." Qianqian bit her lip as tears streamed down her face. "I suddenly feel so sad that I want to cry." "Child, are you scared?" Wulan hurriedly picked her up and took out a handkerchief to wipe her tears. Yi Chun asked her a few more questions, but the little girl could not remember anything at all. She kept crying. "Fellow Yi, looks like Earth is extraordinary." The Patriarch of Hell took a deep look at him. Before this, he had thought that Earth was just a desolate lesser Kiliacosm. Now that he had experienced so much, Earth had become much more mysterious in his heart. Yi Chun shook his head and said nothing. He continued walking forward with everyone. He wanted to see if there were any tombstones left behind by Earth powerhouses. Regardless of their nationality or skin color, these people had used heroic deeds to protect everything when Earth was in danger. They were heroes, and heroes should not have their souls flown away. Heroes should have returned to their homeland and enjoyed the sacrifices and reverence of their descendants. The further they went, the heavier everyone's mood became. Even Wulan and Su Yuhan's eyes were red from crying. There were too many wreckage, too many tombstones. The people who stood alone in this desolate and silent land were like lonely ghosts. When Yi Chun looked at the blue planet from afar, he realized that the blue planet was filled with a vast aura. If one looked at it for a long time, it would actually make one shudder. Is it an illusion? Yi Chun's eyes flashed imperceptibly. He could not help but secretly send a voice transmission to the Patriarch of Hell, telling him what he had discovered. The Patriarch of Hell also looked at Earth from afar. Then he sucked in a breath of cold air and sent a voice transmission. There's a great terror on Earth. It's like a terrifying beast that has fallen into an endless sleep. As expected, Yi Chen was shocked as he continued walking forward. Yi Wuxuang suddenly stopped in his tracks and lowered his head to look at a red stone tablet under his feet. The stone tablet was extremely ancient, and there was a rotten aura coming from it. There was a sword mark that was difficult to see with the naked eye on it. Sword mark. Yi Chen and the Patriarch of Hell could not help but stretch out their hands to touch the surface of the tablet when they saw that. They sensed it with their hearts. They immediately felt like they had fallen into a monstrous sword river. Ancient and endless sword intent stabbed at them. Ancient sword mark. Shi Qianhan took a few steps back and looked at the stone tablet in fear. His face turned pale as he said, "This is an ancient sword mark. It's too ancient. It hasn't been destroyed even after 10,000 years." The others felt their scalps go numb. What kind of sword mark could remain intact for 10,000 years? Moreover, the sword intent within was endless like an inextinguishable tinder. Shi Qianhan muttered to himself, "Could it be that 10,000 years ago, someone from Earth's ancestors fought against the foreign enemies here? And this sword mark was left behind by an ancient sword cultivator?" Patriarch Yellow Spring took a deep breath and said, "Why hasn't anyone discovered this thing before?" "Because Mars has changed," Yi Chen speculated boldly. "The thing that was buried on Mars has been covered by the dust of history. Now that it's appeared again." Mars was known as the Mars star in ancient times, and the word Mars represents calamity, and war. All the dynasties in China have been extremely superstitious about the Mars-Gardhar phenomenon. Into this chapter, Chapter 1379. Earth, you have too many secrets. At this point, he mumbled to himself. At this moment, he could not help but wonder if Chang Yi's flight to the moon, Ho Yi's shooting of the sun, and the various myths in China's history really existed. Everyone continued forward because in that direction, there was a faint majestic aura as well as a boundless constellation shining down on them. Half an hour later, the crowd stopped and stared blankly ahead. There was an incomparably majestic and ancient altar in front of them. The altar was extremely huge. From afar, it looked like a huge city that had been specially built on Mars. The altar was engraved with extremely ancient patterns and words. They looked like birds, bugs, and fish, but they contained a profound and bitter aura. At that moment, everyone could not help but hear strange sounds. The sounds were extremely spacious and ancient, as if they had transcended time and space. This is the sound of the ancient ancestors sacrificing to heaven and earth. Shi Qianhan's heart skipped a beat as he muttered, "I've read in an ancient book that the ancient ancestors revered nature and God. Therefore, they often held sacrificial ceremonies and recited the sacrificial scriptures." "That's right." Yi Chen nodded and said, "The society before the Zhou dynasty was centered around God. They paid attention to the authority of the monarch. For example, the emperors of the Shang dynasty boasted that they were the descendants of God." At this point, he could not help but pause for a moment before continuing. This is also the reason why the investiture of the gods wanted to recruit all kinds of gods. It wanted to separate the humans and the gods to govern each other with the end of the Shang dynasty. With that, he took the lead and walked forward. The closer they got to the altar, the stronger the sacrificial voice in everyone's minds became. Fortunately, it was not aggressive, as if it was just a reenactment of an ancient memory. After crossing the desolate stone steps, everyone's gazes landed on the altar in the distance. It was unknown what material the altar was made of, but it was as smooth as a calm lake. At that moment, there were many sacrificial offerings placed on it. There was an interstellar beast that looked like a Kuwait cow, spirit wine that reeked of alcohol, and even human heads. The eyes of the human heads were wide open, as if they had died with grievances. Their facial features were different from those of humans on Earth. Why are there offerings here? Everyone stopped in their tracks and looked at the offerings that filled the hall. Vigilance surged in their eyes. Su Yuhan could not bear to look at it. And it's using human heads as a sacrifice. Yichen looked at the heads and said with a frown, "These people should be from the outer realm. Moreover, they seem to have died not long ago. However, who killed them and placed their heads here as an offering? Could it be a victory?" A thought suddenly flashed through his mind. In the firmament purple world, after he, Ying, and Yi Wushuang worked together to destroy the immortal palace, Ying left. Before he left, he did not say a word to Yi Chun. He was extremely reclusive. At this moment, the altar that resembled the surface of the lake was filled with strange phenomena. It was dazzling and resplendent. There were many millstone-sized stars floating above the altar. As far as the eye could see, there were at least 100 of them. These celestial bodies were extremely lifelike with different colors. Although their arrangement was messy, they all had their own unique orbits. Although these celestial bodies were small, every one of them faintly emitted a terrifying aura. They were like radioactive elements that constantly overflowed into the outside world. At that moment, Yi Chen's expression finally changed in shock. Is this the universe's star chart? Looks like it is indeed the universe's star chart. The Patriarch of Hell nodded heavily as his gaze wandered around the many celestial bodies. However, it doesn't seem to be complete. There are only 108 celestial bodies. At this point, he seemed to have thought of something, and his expression changed. No, fellow Yi, these are the strongest 108 celestial bodies in the universe. The top 100 stars in the universe? Lightning flashed in Yi Chen's eyes immediately, piercing through the sky. These are the top 100 stars in the universe. I didn't expect the ancient ancestors of Earth to have begun to understand the world of stars 10,000 years ago. Bleck. At this moment, many soul formation powerhouses behind him spat a mouthful of blood. Their complexions were extremely dispirited, and they felt an incomparable pain in their hearts. Don't try to investigate the secrets in each celestial body. Yi Chen shouted immediately. Each of these celestial bodies is stronger than Earth. Their laws are even more shocking. If you guys investigate rashly, you'll easily alarm the heaven illuminators in these celestial bodies. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone could not help but retract their divine consciousness hurriedly. They were as fearful as tigers, and they looked at the celestial bodies again with shock in their eyes. Initially, they thought that they were soul formation powerhouses after all, and they could roam the starry sky. Never did they expect to be injured by a star chart. While Hall Master Northian was shocked, he could not help but look at Yi Chun and say, "Fellow Yi, we're the top 100 stars in the universe. We're the heaven illuminators. I'll explain it to you guys." Before Yi Chun could speak, the Patriarch of Hell spoke first. There are many celestial worlds similar to Earth in the universe. The 100th celestial body on this star chart is the most powerful existence in the universe. How many stars are there in the universe? Someone asked. Who knows? The Patriarch of Hell chuckled. However, according to my guess, there are at least 100,000 of them. Dead silence. The scene suddenly fell into endless silence. Shi Qianhan, Su Yuhan, and the rest fell silent. The Patriarch of Green Spirit and the other soul formation powerhouses seemed to have been petrified, and their hearts were in turmoil. It was fine if there were hundreds of thousands of stars, but the 100th celestial body on the star chart was the most powerful among the hundreds of thousands of stars. Su Yuhan heaved a sigh of relief and could not help but ask, how are these stars ranked? The power of powerhouses. Yi Chun explained patiently. In every star, countless almighties will break through to a higher level over the past tens of millions of years. These people also carry the luck of the star they are on. Their auras will reflect towards the stars outside their mother planet, and the ranking will be determined according to the length of the reflection range. He was afraid that Su Yuhan and the rest did not understand. So he gave an example. For example, countless companies are producing light bulbs, but the brightness and power consumption of each company's light bulbs are different. Some light bulbs not only save energy, but they can also illuminate further in the same dark environment. After hearing his analogy, everyone finally understood. Fellow Yi, that's a good analogy. The patriarch of hell smiled and said, "In a mortal cloud world where I'm from, there are many small planets. There are hundreds of millions of living beings on each planet, and they are divided into level 1 to level 9 cultivation planets. Among them, the highest cultivation base on level 1 cultivation planets is foundation building, while level 2 cultivation planets are golden core, and so on," he said slowly. When a cultivator on a level 1 cultivation planet steps into golden core, the planet he is on will advance to a level 2 cultivation planet. Similarly, if a cultivator on a level 2 cultivation planet steps in a nascent soul, the planet he is on will advance to a level 3 cultivation planet. Into this chapter. Chapter 1380. I see. Everyone came to a realization. Yichin glanced at everyone and said, "The higher the ranking of each star in the heavens, the more luck it will enjoy. It will then benefit the billions of living beings in the world of stars." He spoke confidently. The powerhouses who illuminate the heavens in every star will also receive abundant benefits. Firstly, they will receive the blessing of the mother planet. Secondly, they will enjoy billions of incense offerings. Most importantly, they will be worshipped by countless worlds in the heavens. The benefits are too great. The patriarch of hell chuckled and said, "All heavens will be worshipped, and all realms will worship. They will enjoy billions of incense offerings and endless offerings." Many people's eyes turned red when they heard that. To put it bluntly, what Yichin meant was that being awesome in the countryside was not as awesome as being awesome in the city. Being awesome in the city was not as awesome as being awesome in the world. Being awesome on Earth was not as awesome as being awesome in the universe. The only thing that shocked me was that the ancient ancestors of Earth actually knew about the secrets of the top 100 stars in the heavens 10,000 years ago. Yichin stared blankly at the altar before him and mumbled, "Doesn't this mean that Earth once had a glorious era? It was so glorious that it reflected the universe. In other words, Earth used to have a heaven illuminator?" Shi Qianhan was so excited that he could not control himself. "I wonder what Earth's ranking is in the heavens now." "Haha," Yichin smiled. Then he extended his hand and pointed at the star chart in front of him. Buzz! The starry sky map suddenly trembled violently, and then endless ripples of starlight surged out, revealing a blue planet. A string of ancient words that looked like birds, beasts, insects, and fishes appeared in the ripples. Celestial burial planet, 135,862 130,000. Everyone felt like their parents had died when they saw the string of numbers. They felt like their enthusiasm had been completely extinguished by a bucket of cold water. The patriarch of hell said that there were more than 100,000 stars in the heavens. If Earth was ranked 130,000, wouldn't it be at the bottom of the heavens? No wonder they could not stop the foreign enemies. As if sensing everyone's disappointment, Yichin could not help but comfort them. "This is just Earth's current ranking." Someone forced a smile and said, "Could it be that Earth's ranking was higher in ancient times? Even so, it shouldn't be much higher, right?" At that moment, Su Yuhan suddenly said, "Yichin, there's a tablet there." Everyone couldn't help but look in the direction of the voice. They saw a broken stone tablet at the corner of the altar. It was only half of the tablet, and it was covered in dust. If they didn't look closely, they wouldn't be able to recognize it. Yichin walked over and wiped the dust off the broken tablet. He saw a string of ancient words faintly on the tablet. Someone tried to decipher it. "Celestial burial planet, 6th place." Before he could finish speaking, he stopped abruptly. His eyes widened, and he stood there motionlessly, his entire body trembling. "This is Earth's former ranking among the heavens. 6th place? Earth was ranked 6th. My God, unbelievable, simply unbelievable." At that moment, everyone was shocked. They could not believe their eyes. Even Yichin and the Patriarch of Hell were exceptions. 6th place. Patriarch Yellow Springs Adams apple bobbed as he said, "A mere kiliocosm is ranked 6th among the hundreds of thousands of planets in the universe. This is unbelievable." What kind of era was the ancient times exactly? Yichin took a deep breath in as waves surged in his heart. What kind of existence appeared in the ancient times to be able to illuminate the heavens to such an extent? But why was the ancient era ended? Also, why did these ancestors of Earth who once illuminated the heavens, swept through the 10 worlds, and suppressed the 10 worlds disappear? Celestial burial planet, celestial burial planet. Did immortals really die there? At that moment, countless thoughts flashed through Yi Chen's mind. There were also too many questions. He was not the only one. The rest fell silent as well. The altar before them had told them too much. The pride and glory of the past, the humiliation and loneliness of today. Earth, which was once ranked 6th among the 10,000 worlds, had now been invaded by many great enemies of the stars that they had once suppressed. If this was not humiliation, what was it? Everyone, let's go. Yi Chen took one last deep look at the huge altar before him. Subsequently, he suppressed the doubts in his heart and left with a flick of his sleeve. Although Earth was far from Mars, it looked like it was within reach from Mars. Therefore, there was no need for the star-fixing compass. Roar! Xiao He revealed its true form. Yi Chen held Su Yuhan's hand and took a step forward. They landed on Xiao He's back immediately. The rest hurried up. After everyone stabilized themselves, the little black dragon's body shook and it charged towards Earth at an extremely fast speed. Mars was over 40 million kilometers away from Earth. With Xiao He's beginner stage god transformation stage cultivation base, it would take half a day at most to arrive. Yi Hai, who was behind him, suddenly coughed. He looked at Yi Chen and said, Xiao Chen, I have to give you an order before we go home. Before Yi Chen could speak, he said, I don't care what urgent matters you have when we get back. Marry Yuhan first. Your father is right. Wulan snapped back to her senses. She glanced at Su Yuhan as if her heart ached. Yuhan has sacrificed too much for you. She even gave birth to 2 children for you. You must give her a status. The patriarch of hell and the rest could not help but laugh when they heard that. That's great. We'll be waiting to drink the wedding wine. Su Yuhan's pretty face blushed. She could not help but turn her head to look at Yi Chen. Her eyes were filled with sweetness and anticipation. Dad, Mom, I got it. Yi Chen did not know whether to laugh or cry. I know what to do even if you guys don't say anything. Don't worry. I'll marry Yuhan immediately when I get back. Yi Hai and Wulan looked satisfied when they heard that. Su Yuhan's grip on Yi Chen's hand tightened. No woman would not look forward to getting married. She had worn a wedding dress twice in her life, but she did not wear it for Yi Chen. That was something she could not let go of. Now that she was going to wear it for Yi Chen, how could she not be happy? Even though she knew that she only had half a year to live, she still felt content. Half a day passed very quickly. Whoosh! Earth became clearer and clearer in everyone's eyes. Xiao He flashed with a black glow and passed through the atmosphere directly, entering Earth completely. At that moment, Yi Chen ordered, Xiao He, hide your aura and hide yourself. Don't alert anyone. The reason why Yi Chen gave that order was that he was worried that they would be treated as enemies from the outer world if they descended on Earth in such a high-profile manner. It would definitely cause unnecessary panic and trouble. He only wanted to accompany Su Yuhan quietly. At the same time, he wanted to see what Earth had become while he was away. Chapter 1381. With Yi Chen's instructions, Xiao He immediately turned invisible. The moment it carried everyone through the atmosphere, Xiao He's figure disappeared. The mountains and rivers on the surface of the Earth immediately appeared in everyone's line of sight, and the countless skyscrapers gradually became clear. At the same time, incomparably rich world essence, qi, rushed over, and the spirit qi in the air was visible to the naked eye. It has changed. Yi Chen was extremely shocked when he sensed the changes. Compared to before we left, the spiritual energy on Earth is even denser now, not bad. Old ancestor Yellow Spring closed his eyes and sensed for a while. He nodded and said, the density of the spiritual qi here is not any weaker than the firmament purple world. What happened? Why do I feel like my cultivation is fading away? Hall Master Bei Yun and the others' expressions changed at the same time. A soul formation final stage cultivator seemed to be terrified. My cultivation base is the same. It's as if there's a pair of giant hands sucking away the spirit energy within my body. It's as if our spirit energy and cultivation bases are all fading away. Another soul formation intermediate stage, cultivator, said in a trembling voice. Me too. Everyone else was stunned by this strange change. Yichen's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. Ever since he lost the third drop of heart blood in his body, his cultivation base had been regressing, so he did not notice the change. He could not help but look at Patriarch Yellow Spring. Patriarch Yellow Spring had a grave expression on his face. He took a deep breath and said, "My cultivation base is also regressing, but the speed is very slow. How could this be?" Everyone was terrified. They had never experienced something like this before. Yichen closed his eyes immediately when he heard that. He sensed the changes in the dark. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly opened his eyes. The laws of Earth have changed. The laws of heaven and earth have changed. With his reminder, Patriarch Yellow Spring also came to his senses. He said in a deep voice, "The rules of Earth's heaven and earth are suppressing us." After saying that, he could not help but explain, "In reality, our cultivation haven't regressed, but we've been suppressed by the laws of the world on Earth, giving us a sense of danger and illusion. Not bad." Yichen nodded lightly and said, "You can understand this change as Earth increasing its own defense mechanism. The higher one's cultivation base is, the more obvious the feeling will be. This star is too unpredictable." Everyone else felt their hairs stand on end. Although their cultivations hadn't truly regressed, the feeling of being suppressed by the laws was even more terrifying. Yichen took a look at everyone's changes and came to a conclusion in the end. It seems like the laws of heaven and earth on Earth reject people with profound cultivation base. If late-stage God transformation stage makes people panic, then Great Perfection God transformation stage and Void refinement stage will make their hair stand on end. As Little Black got closer and closer to the surface, it became more and more strenuous. Not to mention the rapid consumption of spiritual power. Even its own gravity had skyrocketed countless times. As expected, the laws have changed. Yi Chan extended his hand and gathered the spiritual energy within a radius of 300 meters. He secretly frowned. Usually, I can gather spiritual energy within a radius of 300 meters with the same ability. However, I can only gather 300 meters now. Not only that, even the law of gravity has changed. The Patriarch of Hell threw a heavy object into the sea on the ground. The heavy object fell at a speed that surpassed the speed of light, completely violating the previous laws of gravity in Newton. 100,000 meters, 90,000 meters, 80,000 meters. Soon, Little Black carried everyone to a height of less than 1,000 meters from the ground. Then, it stopped descending and stabilized itself at an altitude of 10,000 meters. What is this place? Everyone stared at the ground below and saw a boundless grassland. At that moment, there were countless mutated beasts on the grassland. These mutated beasts were dozens of meters tall and extremely huge, especially a huge honey badger that looked like Brother Flat Top. It was fighting 4 ferocious pythons that were more than twice its size at the same time. Boom! Brother Flat Top roared furiously. It hugged a python with its claws and tore it into a bloody mist. It had not noticed the existence in the sky. This is the African grassland. Yichen took a good look at the golden core Brother Flat Top and said to Little Black, fly northeast. At the same time, his heart was heavy. In the past, the African honey badger, Brother Flat Top, who was indifferent to life and death in everyone's eyes, had mutated to a size of more than 10 meters. Moreover, it had a golden core cultivation base. He had only left Earth for a year and a half. Why did such a drastic change happen? China, Tianan Province, Lin City. When Little Black carried Yi Chen into the sky above Lin City, Yi Chen's expression was extremely complicated. It's changed. Everything has changed. He looked at the ground from the sky. All he saw were tall buildings that rose from the ground. There were modern buildings and retro pavilions in the air. Whether it was buildings or pavilions, they were thousands of meters tall. Any one of them could be compared to Mount Everest. On the ground, Demonic beasts appeared on the streets in their original forms. They walked on their feet like humans, but the humans around them were not afraid. Instead, they laughed and got along with them. There was a middle school student in a school uniform who flew in the air on two legs. He seemed to be in a hurry to get to school. A delivery man flew on his sword and landed in front of a villa. He took out a barbecued meat the size of a calf from his storage ring. Then, he took a few spirit stones and left on his sword again. An old man in the park in his 70s or 80s was practicing Tai Chi in front of everyone. Every move he made was a phenomenon that contained the secret of Tai Chi. In just over a year, he could not believe the changes that had happened to his former homeland. He was not the only one. Even Yihai, Wulan, and the rest behind him looked unfamiliar. This was too different from the homeland that they thought about day and night. Both of them suspected that Little Black had gone the wrong way. Su Yuhan grabbed Yi Chen's hand by instinct and said while biting her lip, "Yi Chen, is this Lin City?" Maybe. Yi Chen smiled with a complicated expression. He was not sure. Then, he said to Little Black, "Little Black, let's go to Nine Dragons Bay." Nine Dragons Bay was Yi Chen's second home after he returned from the immortal world. The villa was a gift from Old Master Gu, a wealthy family in Tiannan. After Yi Chen founded the Star Group, he bought all of Nine Dragons Bay. Before he left Earth, the Star Group had already become the #1 business overlord in the country, suppressing the 3 provinces in Tiannan. I wonder how Yi Wen and the rest are doing. Yi Chen was suddenly looking forward to it. Based on his memory, he gave Little Black a rough direction. Little Black was extremely fast. He arrived above Nine Dragons Bay in a few minutes. However, the scene that greeted him made Yi Chen furious. End of this chapter. Chapter 1382. The man-made lake that used to be protected by the man-made lake was now Nine Dragons Bay after Yi Chen's transformation. The spiritual energy was like fog, and there were countless treasures. The Holy Land in everyone's eyes had now turned into a smelly ditch. The lake water was sticky black, and countless household garbage floated on it. The villas and Jinxiu spiritual mountain that were protected by the moat no longer existed. Instead, it was replaced by a factory that occupied dozens of kilometers. Chimneys that looked like pill furnaces stood tall. Black smoke filled the sky, and endless sewage was discharged into Nine Dragons Lake crazily, polluting not even a single plant. Yihai, Wulan, and the rest could not believe what they were seeing. This used to be their home, but now it had become someone else's factory. It had become a polluted place. Su Yuhan's heart ached. Yi Chen, is this Nine Dragons Bay? Why is this happening? Yi Chen's face was extremely livid. He felt like the rage in his heart was about to pour out. Where are Yi Wen and the rest? Where's the Star Group? Before he left, he ordered Yi Wen, Xiaoye, Tang Ning, and the other core members of the Star Group to guard everything. How could the current scene not anger him? At his age, he could not help but take a deep breath in. He turned around and said to everyone, "Wait for me here. I'll go down and take a look." Yi Chen. Su Yuhan stopped him. "I'll go with you, all right." Yi Chen held her weak hand. Subsequently, he landed on the ground with a flash. It's changed. The two of them looked around, and they could not help but think of the grass and trees in the past. Their hearts sank to the extreme. "Yi Chen, look!" Su Yuhan pointed at the black, sticky lake. Her hand that was holding Yi Chen's trembled slightly. Nine Dragons Lake used to be so beautiful. You even used the spiritual energy of Nine Dragons Lake to help me cultivate. Before this, she was looking forward to getting married with Yi Chen when they return home. However, their home was gone now. That's right. Yi Chen raised his head and looked at the chimney that looked like a giant pillar that supported the sky. His heart trembled slightly. I'm a little worried about Yi Wen and the rest now. Su Yuhan's eyelashes fluttered as she said worriedly. With their personalities, how could they sit back and watch Nine Dragons Bay become like this? Yi Chen patted her hand. Just when he was about to comfort her, he heard a shout from afar. "Who's there?" In an instant, a figure quickly flew towards the place where the two of them were. It was a woman in her 20s. She was dressed luxuriously and wore a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. She exuded a lofty aura. The most eye-catching thing was that her cultivation base was a foundation building. She was holding a black mastiff in her hand. The fur on the mastiff's body was standing on end as it bared its teeth and barked at Yi Chun and Gu Lingji. The Tibetan Mastiff was at the foundation establishment stage. Su Yuhan's face turned pale. She could not help but grab Yi Chun's hand by instinct. The Tibetan Mastiff looked too ferocious. "Who are you people?" The lady glared coldly at Yi Chun and Chung Yu while holding the Tibetan Mastiff. "Why are you sneaking around in my Chung family's factory? Could it be that you want to steal something? This is your Chung family's factory?" Yi Chun looked at her as if he was scrutinizing her. A barely noticeable flash flashed through his eyes. "Which Chung family? You don't even know the Chung family, one of the 3 wealthy families in Lin City." The lady's eyes turned cold as she thought that he was pestering her. "I'll ask you one last time. Who are you people? Why are you in my Chung family's factory?" Seeming to have sensed her impatience, the giant Tibetan Mastiff next to her could not help but glare at Yi Chun and Gu Lingji ferociously. Yi Chun squinted at her with his grim eyes, as if he did not hear her. "Where did the original owner of this place go? You bastard!" The lady's eyes turned cold as she was enraged. "Who do you think you are? How dare you ignore my questions again and again? Let's go, Yi Chun." Su Yuhan bit her red lip and pulled Yi Chun by instinct. Being kind, she did not want Yi Chun to have a conflict with others. "Go!" The lady scoffed and blocked the duo's way. She said with killing intent in her eyes, "Everyone in Lin City knows that this is my Chung family's territory. Don't even think about leaving if you guys don't give me an explanation today." Yi Chun, who was supposed to move, stopped walking after hearing that. He looked at her expressionlessly from behind. "What? Are you going to fight me?" The lady crossed her arms, seeming to be disdainful. "You be ****starred. You won't dare to touch me even if you have 10 guts. Otherwise, my Chung family will make you disappear from this world anytime." "Oh." Yi Chun squinted and looked her up and down. "You keep mentioning the Chung family. I'd love to see what your family is capable of." "You?" The lady seemed to be laughing out of anger. She took a good look at him in slight disdain. "There's no need for my Chung family to do anything to kill you. Black Viper, teach this guy a lesson." She let go of the microphone in her hand as soon as she was done speaking. "Roar!" The giant Tibetan Mastiff that was initially sitting still roared and charged at Yi Chun. It was extremely fast, and a terrifying aura was released. "Lowly ant, if you kneel and apologize to me now, I might spare your life." A grin appeared at the corner of the lady's lips when she saw that. Hatred filled her face as if she had seen Yi Chun being torn apart by the demonic beast that she reared. However, what happened in the next second made her smile freeze. Hei Tong stopped abruptly when he was about to approach Yi Chun. Then, he lay on the ground heavily. His body could not stop trembling as if he was extremely frightened. The lady urged, "Be ****starred, get up now." Slap! At that moment, she felt her vision go black. Then, a wide hand slapped her face hard, causing her to see stars. It was too fast, so fast that she could not react even though she was on foundation building. Slap, slap, slap. Another 3 slaps landed on her face. When the last slap landed, the lady staggered a few times. She covered her painful face and looked at Yi Chun in disbelief. "Bastard, why you dare to hit me?" When she, Chung Li Shue, walked out of the Chung residence, she was like a high and mighty princess in this huge Lin City. Everyone dared to disrespect her. However, she was being hit now. Yi Chun smiled lightly. His smile looked like a spring breeze, but it was extremely cold. "Do you believe that I dare to kill you? Do you believe that I dare to kill you?" These extremely simple words exploded in Chung Li Shue's mind like rolling thunder, causing her to tremble with fear. She covered her face and tried to speak a few times. However, she swallowed her words as soon as they reached her mouth. She was really afraid that Yi Chun would kill her. Yi Chun glanced at her calmly, but his voice was firm. "Get your family's leader to see me here at this time tomorrow. Remember, I'll only give your family 1 day." He turned around slowly after saying that, and left while holding Su Yuhan's hand gently. They disappeared from where they were within the blink of an eye. After that, Chung Li Shue finally recovered from her daze. Her eyes were immediately filled with extreme grievance, as well as a monstrous hatred. She clenched her teeth tightly and said viciously, "This is the first time I've been humiliated like this. Just you wait. I swear I'll kill you." End of this chapter. Chapter 1383. Yichun held Su Yuhan's hand and flew up without saying a word. However, those who knew him knew that it was a sign that he was extremely furious. Su Yuhan could not help but hold his hand tightly, as if she sensed his emotions. She said softly, "Yichun, promise me that you won't get into a conflict with anyone unless it's absolutely necessary, okay?" There were tears in her eyes. "You're too hot-tempered. If you get into a conflict with someone, it'll definitely affect everything. It'll escalate. I don't have much time left. I just want you to stay by my side and live a peaceful life in the remaining time I have." She looked at Yichun almost begging as she spoke to this point. "Yichun, promise me. Don't let me die with regrets. You won't die." Yichun suddenly felt a sharp pain in his heart as he looked at her pale face. "Trust me, you won't die." Subsequently, he took a deep breath in and said with a nod, "All right, I promise you that I won't do anything unless it's absolutely necessary." Su Yuhan smiled miserably. "How great would it be if we were ordinary people? Although we only have a few decades of life, at least we wouldn't have to bear so many responsibilities. We wouldn't have to face deception, killing, and robbing." Yichun's heart ached again when he heard that. Return to being an ordinary person? Was that possible? Cultivation was as deep as the ocean. The greater one's ability, the greater one's responsibility. How could it be easy to retreat? When Yichun and Su Yuhan returned 10,000 meters above the ground, Yihai could not help but ask, "Xiaochun, how's it going?" "It's changed." Yichun covered his mouth and coughed a few times. He hid the blood on his hand quietly and said with a dim gaze, "Our home has been taken by a wealthy family called the Chung family." Wealthy family? Yihai was stunned at first. Then he thought about it and could not help but say, "Before we left, there wasn't such a wealthy family in Lin City. What should we do now?" Wulan was worried. She said while wiping her tears, "Our home is gone. I wonder where Yi Wan and the rest are." The Patriarch of Hell frowned slightly. "What should we do next?" He had seen what happened between Yi Chun and Chung Lixue on the ground earlier. He did not agree with what Yi Chun did. However, he sighed secretly as soon as he thought about Su Yuhan's body condition. Yi Chun said without thinking, "We've traveled a long way. The most important thing now is to find a place to settle down. At the same time, we'll understand the current situation and think of a way to find out about Yi Wan and the rest." "All right." Patriarch Yellow Spring nodded. Yichun glanced at Temple Master Bei Yun and the rest again. "Everyone, it's not suitable for us to walk together. We're too big of a target. You guys should disperse. Inform me if there's any news." With that, he immediately took out a blank jade slip and engraved the information of Yi Wan and the rest into it. He handed it to the North Sea Hall Master. "These are the people I'm looking for. Tell me immediately if you meet them." "All right." Hall Master Biming took the scroll and learned about Yi Wen's group. He then passed it to someone else. Everyone read it and memorized it. Yichun reminded them again. "The situation on Earth is unclear now. Everyone, please be careful. Don't expose yourself to avoid unnecessary trouble." Everyone nodded and left. The Patriarch Yellow Spring looked at Yichun and said while chuckling, "Fellow Yi, I won't disturb your family anymore. Just contact me if you need anything." With that, he turned into a streak of light and disappeared into the horizon. Yichun watched him leave. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. He knew what the Patriarch was doing without thinking. "Let's go." In the end, he looked at his parents and the rest. Then, he got Xiaohei to transform into a human and landed on the ground. After a few rounds of business, Yichun bought a house that looked like a courtyard house in the suburbs of Lin City. Even so, it still cost him 300 low-grade spirit stones. It was only then that everyone realized that Earth was really different from before. The currency in circulation had become spirit stones. It was equivalent to saying that the money Yichun used to store in his card had become a string of numbers. "Dad, Mom, rest here for now." After settling everything, Yichun said to his parents, "I'll bring Yuhan out for a walk." Wulan smiled and said, remember to buy more things for Yuhan. The eyes of the little girl in her arms lit up with anticipation. Daddy, I want to go too. You're not allowed to go anywhere. Wulong glared at her and said angrily, Daddy and Mommy are going shopping. Are you going to be the third wheel? That's right. Look at how obedient your brother is. You should learn from him. Yihai was carrying Yi Chen's second child in his arms. The little girl had yet to be named. It was mainly because Yihai was more traditional. He said that naming was a big deal, so he had to read the family tree. In the past few days, the little girl had been feeding it with deer milk. It did not cry or make a fuss. It was just observing everything with its dark eyes. My brother is a little kid. Meng Meng rolled her eyes. Meng Meng rolled her eyes. He knows nothing but eating and sleeping every day. Yi Chan said with a straight face, All right, listen to Grandpa and Grandma. Daddy and Mommy will be back soon. We'll buy you something to eat. The little girl nodded unwillingly. Yi Chen then led Su Yuhan out. Yi Wushuang and Xiao He chose to stay at home. Compared to before, not only did Lin's city undergo earth-shattering changes, but there were also skyscrapers rising from the ground. The urban area was expanding, and even the population density had increased countless times. Walking on the bustling street, Yi Chun and Su Yuhan saw people shouting at the top of their lungs with loudspeakers in every shop when they passed by the business district. If you want to cultivate, come to Green Mountain's summer training class. We have professional foundation building teachers. The subjects include alchemy, tool refinement, sword techniques. Don't worry, the students don't know how to internalize energy into their bodies. Please go to the Wanglong Education Institution. We'll take care of everything there. An opposing voice was heard as well. What's so great about cultivating? Martial Dao is the most powerful in the universe. Strength can break all methods. I'll smash all flying swords and magic tools with a single punch. Those from poor families who don't have the potential to cultivate come to my Black Tortoise Martial Dao training class. Both parties seem to be competing with each other. All sorts of shouts were heard from afar, stunning the passers-by. At that moment, a restaurant owner walked out with a scarf wrapped around his waist. You have to eat even if you don't have to abstain from eating. Welcome to our restaurant. We have 8 treasure spirit cranes, 1,000-year-old tortoise salad. It's changed a lot. Su Yuhan listened to the conversation quietly. Her eyes were filled with disappointment. She did not know if she should be happy or sad that Earth had become like this. Yi Chen's bright moonlight was parked on an electric pole by the road. There was an advertisement that offered a lot of money for children. End of this chapter. Chapter 1384. Wang XX. Gender. Female, 28 years old. 1. 72 centimeters tall. Voluptuous and charming. Trespassing on dual cultivation. My husband is a golden core stage ancestor. Because of his cultivation method, he castrated himself and lost his fertility. After discussion, I'm looking for a young, healthy, and talented local man to fulfill my dream of becoming a mother. If I'm satisfied with him, I'll immediately send 1,000 low-grade spirit stones as a deposit. If I get pregnant, I'll pay another 2,000 low-grade spirit stones. While Yi Chen was shocked, he was attracted by the advertisement on the other electric pole. The 5th branch of Lin City's wealthy Chung clan is looking for a son-in-law. The requirements are that the groom is between 25 to 35 years old, 1. 8 meters tall, unmarried, and his cultivation base must not be lower than the early stage of foundation establishment. If both parties are suitable, the bride's family will immediately send 5,000 low-grade spirit stones and a middle-grade spirit weapon as dowry. The groom will also be provided with a cave abode of 100 square meters with complete facilities. Yi Chen could not help but force a smile after reading it. I wonder if I've returned to Earth. Instead, I've come to an unfamiliar world. Yi Chun, there's a wedding dress shop there. Su Yuhan looked far away. Her beautiful eyes that were initially dim lit up. Should we go and take a look? All right. Yi Chen smiled lightly when he met her expectant gaze. He held her hand and walked to the bridal shop in the distance. The name of the wedding dress shop was very poetic and fairy-like. It was called Immortal Couple Residence. Outside the wedding dress shop, there was a small formation that had an alarm and anti-theft function. Welcome, both of you. As soon as Yi Chun and Su Yuhan arrived at the door, a lady in luxurious clothes welcomed them. May I know if the two of you are here to try on your wedding dresses? The woman was only in her early 20s, but she was at the early stage of the spirit assembly state. Her facial features were extraordinary. Yi Chun nodded lightly. A token appeared in the former's hand immediately. Subsequently, he removed the formation before him and led Yi Chun in. The interior of the shop was not big and was about 100 square meters. There were many clothes racks arranged in an orderly manner with colorful wedding dresses hanging on them. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a dazzling lineup. There was a dust-repelling array set up on these clothes racks to prevent the wedding gowns from being contaminated by dust. What kind of wedding gown do you want? The lady sized Yi Chun up with a smile and introduced. Our wedding dresses are divided into magic tools, spirit tools, and treasure tools. They're divided into inferior grade, intermediate grade, superior grade, and supreme grade. At this point, she turned around and pointed at a snow-white wedding dress on a rack beside her. This wedding dress is a low-grade magic artifact. It was refined by a skilled craftsman using goose feathers plucked from a snow crane. It can resist water and fire, and it's worth 100 low-grade spirit stones. There are so many wedding dresses? Su Yuhan could not help but frown when she heard that. She seemed extremely surprised. At this moment, her feelings were extremely complicated. In the past, a wedding dress was just an ordinary dress used for weddings. She didn't expect it to become a magic tool now. She looked at Yi Chun by instinct as she thought to this point and asked, Yi Chun, what should we buy? It's up to you, Yi Chun said with a smile. Su Yuhan, then, turned her head to look at the lady. She bit her red lip and said, Sister, do you have any ordinary wedding gowns in your store? Ordinary wedding gowns? The lady was stunned at first. Then the smile on her face turned colder. You too want the kind of wedding gowns that ordinary people wear, right? Yes, Su Yuhan nodded immediately. Her mindset was still the same as before. She only wanted to wear an ordinary wedding gown and marry Yi Chun. As for magic tools, they were worthless to her. I'm sorry. The lady stopped smiling and said coldly, We don't have such worthless things in our store. You guys have come to the wrong place. You should go to the slums. You can find what you want there. Su Yuhan seemed to sigh in disappointment. She turned around and said to Yi Chun, Yi Chun, let's go. Yi Chun frowned. Just when he was about to leave with Su Yuhan, he saw two figures walking in. It was a man and a woman in their early 20s. They were dressed extraordinary, and they had the aura of a great family. The woman, who was initially impatient with Yi Chun and the rest, was delighted when she saw them. Qingyu, why are you guys here? Sister Qiaona, I'm here with Chungbo to try on the wedding gown. The woman called Qingyu greeted them with a smile. It seems like your marriage is set. Qiaona was extremely surprised. She looked at the young man called Chungbo and said while smiling, Congratulations. I'll give you whichever one you like. Chungbo was the third-generation disciple of the Chung family, one of the three wealthy families in Lin City. Although he did not have a high position in the Chung family, he was still a member of the family. She, a wedding gown shop owner, could not afford to offend him. Qingyu suddenly glanced at Yi Chun and Qiaona and asked, Sister Qiaona, which one do they like? Them? Qiaona's smile turned cold. They don't like anything. They came to me to buy the ordinary wedding gowns that people from the slums wear. Qingyu was extremely surprised to hear that. There was disdain in her eyes when she looked at Yi Chun and Qiaona. Who would wear an ordinary wedding gown nowadays? The young man called Chungbo looked at Yi Chun wryly and said, Guys, I admire your courage. You guys came here to buy an ordinary wedding gown. Let's go. Yi Chun walked out of the store while holding Su Yuhan's hand as if he did not see them. Chungbo's eyes turned slightly cold upon seeing that. He shouted immediately, Stop right there. As the Chung family's disciple, when had he ever been ignored? Moreover, it was by these two lowly people who seemed to have come from the slums. Yi Chun turned his head to look at him. Su Yuhan tugged the corner of his shirt immediately. Let's go. Let's go. Chungbo scoffed. You guys have affected my mood today. How can I leave so easily? Qingyu stood up immediately to mediate the situation. Forget it, Chungbo. There's no need to be angry over them. That's right, young Master Chung, Xiaona advised. Forget it if you want. Mockery appeared at the corner of Chung Bo's lips. Forget it as long as they get out of here. Yichin stopped walking. He turned around and glared at him coldly despite Su Yuhan's attempt to stop him. You're seeking death. For Su Yuhan's sake, he could tolerate this ant's arrogance. However, if this ant crossed his bottom line, he could only crush him to death. At that moment, an old voice came from outside the wedding gown store. Qingyu, which one do you guys like? Subsequently, a beautiful middle-aged woman walked in slowly. However, when the beautiful woman's eyes landed on Yi Chun, her body suddenly trembled. Disbelief surged in her eyes. And Mr. Yi. She was only over 30 years old, but there was an ancient aura in her phoenix-like eyes, as if she had gone through many hardships. Are you Ms. Gu? Yi Chun was stunned at first. He could not help but take a few good looks at her. There was shock on his face. The beautiful middle-aged lady was Gu Yingying. She was once the young mistress of the wealthy Gu family in Tianan. Never had he thought that the young mistress of the Gu family, who used to have countless suitors, would be so old now. End of this chapter. Chapter 1385. And Mr. E. In the wedding dress store, Gu Yingying stared at Yi Chun with her almond-shaped eyes when he recognized her. She was extremely excited. I can't believe it's really you. Over the years, she had been through ups and downs and had been through hardships. She thought she would never see Yi Chun again in her life. However, never in her wildest dreams did she expect to see him here. Meanwhile, Qingyu and Chung Bo were dumbfounded. Clearly, they did not expect Gu Yingying to know Yi Chun and Gu Yingying. Looking at Gu Yingying, who looked like a middle-aged woman, Su Yuhan, who was next to Yi Chun, was slightly stunned. Then, she recognized her. Yi Chun took a deep breath in and said while looking at Gu Yingying, Ms. Gu, how did you become like this? Where's old Master Gu? This was the first old friend he had met after returning to Earth, and it also caused his originally lonely and out-of-place mood to be slightly comforted. Gu Yingying's eyes dimmed when she heard the words, Old Master Gu. She then wiped the tears off her face and said with a smile, Mr. Yi, why don't we find a place to sit down and talk? Sure. Naturally, Yi Chun agreed. He had too many questions in his heart. Since the enemy from the outer realm had invaded Earth, why didn't they see or hear any signs of being invaded after they landed on Earth? Most importantly, why did Nine Dragons Bay become like this? Where did Star Group, Yi-Won, and the rest go? Gu Yingying led Yi Chun and Chung Bo out of the wedding dress store after saying that. Qingyu and Chung Bo finally snapped out of their daze. The former's mouth was wide open in shock. Auntie, who has always been extremely calm and strict, actually lost her composure like this. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. Ever since she could remember, her auntie had been a cold and silent elder in the family. She was so cold that even she was a little afraid of her. Your auntie actually knows that kid? Chung Bo, who was beside her, looked in the direction where the two of them left and could not help but ask, Do you know who he is? It's my first time seeing him, too. Chu Qingyu shook her head and said, Chung Bo, let's follow them and take a look. That guy has white hair and looks sickly. I'm worried about Annie. The two of them hurriedly followed. After they caught up, Gu Yingying seemed to have recalled something. She looked at Chu Qingyu and introduced her to Yi Chun. Mr. Yi, this is my niece, Chu Qingyu. When you left, she was only 7 or 8 years old. 7 or 8 years old. Hearing that, Yi Chun could not help but take another look at Chu Qingyu. A strange gleam flashed through his eyes. Chu Qingyu was at least 22 or 23 years old, and he had only left Earth for more than a year. How did Chu Qingyu become 7 or 8 years old at that time? Gu Yingying looked at Chu Qingyu and said, Qingyu, why aren't you greeting Uncle Yi? I won't. Chu Qingyu pouted and said while looking at Yi Chun, other than his white hair and sickly appearance, he doesn't look much older than me. Beginner stage foundation building. Not bad. Yi Chun could see through her cultivation base at first glance. He could not help but nod. Chu Qingyu was shocked when she heard that. Clearly, she did not expect Yi Chun to see through her cultivation base at a glance. Then, she felt a little indignant. She had stepped into cultivation at the age of 8 and reached beginner stage foundation building at the age of 24. Not to mention the Chu family. Even in the entire Lin city, she was one of the few geniuses. However, Yichen only said not bad. She could not help but snort coldly as she thought to this point. Who do you think you are? Soon, Guiying led them to a villa. Considering that it was not good for outsiders to be present when she was reuniting with Yichen, she instructed Chu Qingyu and Gu Yingying to wait outside. Yichen looked at the villa that was less than 200 square meters in front of him, and then looked at Gu Yingying, who was alone. He could not help but say, "Ms. Gu, can you tell me about the changes on Earth while I was away?" Gu Yingying seemed to be mentally prepared. After a soft sigh, she told him everything she knew. It turned out that in the first month after Yichen went to the ancient desolate realm, the various forces and countries on Earth got along harmoniously. With the cultivation method that Yichen provided and the promotion of the star group, the era of cultivation began. In the second month, earthquakes and tsunamis occurred frequently on Earth, causing the world to change drastically. The sea and land changed, and the population of the entire Earth more than doubled compared to before. Countless mysterious civilizations, inheritance caves, and cultivation ruins appeared at the same time. Various countries began to excavate these inheritances, and at the same time, they learned countless ancient secrets. After that, the astronomical bureaus of various countries detected signs of life in space and countless sets of data. Long ago, the upper echelons of various countries had learned that a great enemy from outer space had invaded Earth. After a meeting, the various countries decided to send a group of spaceships to space for investigation. All of the spaceships were killed in battle. Only the data sent out by one spaceship before it crashed caused the entire Earth to fall into endless panic. That was the extraterrestrial civilization coveting Earth. Initially, there were human cultivators who did not take the extraterrestrial civilization seriously. There were also many powerful human cultivators who went to space to negotiate, but they never returned. This price completely made the countries on Earth realize the cruel reality. They had no choice but to form a community with a shared future for mankind. They sent countless scientific and technological forces and peak human powerhouses to the outer space to stop the extraterrestrial civilization. The result was that all the top powerhouses in the countries were killed in battle. Countless holy lands and secret realms were destroyed. Even the holy land of China, the Kunlun ruins, suffered heavy losses. Almost all the top powerhouses were killed. What happened after that? Yichen could not help but heave a sigh of relief when he heard that. It was exactly the same as what he had discovered on Mars. Gu Yingying smiled bitterly. After that, the countries on Earth gathered the strength of humans to confront the extraterrestrial enemies for 5 years. During that time, Yichen's pupils constricted when he heard that. He said immediately, "I clearly remember that I've only left Earth for over a year." Gu Yingying stopped abruptly. She widened her eyes and looked at him in disbelief. "Mr. Yi, you've been away from Earth for almost 17 years. As soon as she said that, Yichen and Su Yuhan's bodies trembled. 17 years. They had left Earth for 17 years. However, they had stayed in the ancient desolate realm for less than 2 years. Gu Yingying seemed to have sensed Yichen's disbelief. She took out a mechanical watch and pointed at the time on it and said, "Mr. Yi, you left Earth when the 19th year was about to end. It's July 3-6 now." Yichen's expression froze when he looked over. Su Yuhan turned her head to look at him by instinct. Her beautiful eyes were filled with disbelief. "Yichen, what's going on?" End of this chapter. Chapter 1386. The law. The time law on Earth must have changed. A thought suddenly flashed through Yichen's mind. He then mumbled, "It seems like the law on Earth has changed a month after I left, causing the time on Earth and the ancient desolate realm to no longer synchronize." Then, when Xiaohei carried them through Earth's atmosphere to descend to Earth, they were suppressed by the law and the law of gravity. That was not difficult to explain. Hearing that, Su Yuhan could not help but smile bitterly. "So it's been 17 years since we left Earth?" 17 years. It was a very long number. In these 17 years, there were newborn children who grew to 17 or 18 years old. young people who were originally in their 20s or 30s who entered middle-age life, and old people who were originally in their 70s or 80s who were buried. If that was the case, it would explain why Gu Yingying looked like a beautiful middle-aged woman. What about old Master Gu? Yichen asked. Gu Yingying's eyes dimmed. She then lowered her head and said softly, "Grandpa passed away 10 years ago. Before he died, he kept talking about you. He regretted that he couldn't wait for the day you returned." Yichun was silent as he sighed. He respected old Master Gu. This old man had participated in the war against Japan and was a true hero of the people. Even though Yi Chun had fallen out with the Gu family because of Gu Shaoquan's betrayal, old Master Gu had never blamed him. Instead, he took the initiative to disperse the Gu family's assets and disband the Gu family. He ignored his old age and went to the front line to contribute to the country. What a pity, he sighed softly and looked up at Gu Yingying. He asked again, "What happened in the past 17 years? Gu Yingying sighed softly and said, "Earth and the extraterrestrial civilization were in a stalemate for 5 years. In the end, Earth lost. Countless extraterrestrial civilizations came to Earth, such as the Great Sun Dojo, the Blue Dragon Palace, the Beast God Realm." She looked at Yi Chun as she spoke to this point and said, "However, they seem to have reached some agreement with the various countries. They didn't attack the humans on Earth." They reached an agreement? Yi Chun's eyes focused when he heard that. Lightning flashed in his eyes. No wonder I didn't see any traces of Earth being destroyed after I arrived on Earth. Thinking to this point, the lightning in his eyes became even more resplendent. However, what agreement did these extraterrestrial civilizations reach with the various countries? With their strength, they could have destroyed Earth. Yi Chun did not know if there were God transformation stage powerhouses on Earth, but there must be such powerhouses in the extraterrestrial civilization. With their methods, they could burn mountains and rivers with a single thought. There's another possibility. A thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Unless Earth also has something that they are afraid of. That's why they are afraid of taking action. However, this was just his guess. Perhaps only the higher-ups of each country would know the real reason. Gu Yingying paused and said, "Mr. Yi, later on, countries marked out a place for these extraterrestrial civilizations to live. Currently, China, America, and other big countries on Earth are supported by extraterrestrial civilizations. These extraterrestrial civilizations have obtained the consent of various countries to establish various inheritances, orthodoxies, and cultivation holy lands on Earth." At this point, she slowly said, "This is also the reason why Earth has undergone earth-shattering changes in just 12 years. Create an orthodoxy and inheritance?" Yichen scoffed and said, "These extraterrestrial civilizations have put in so much effort. Would they be so kind? It seems like they are plotting something big." At the same time, he could not help but feel a trace of sorrow. Most people on Earth had probably already become friends with these extraterrestrial civilizations, and they might even follow their lead. Their backs were completely bent, and they had completely forgotten how many people who dared to fight and die had sacrificed their lives for Earth. For example, the powerhouses of China's Kunlun ruins. It was the greatest tragedy for future generations to forget the humiliation. Thinking to this point, he secretly shook his head. He took a deep breath in and said, "What happened to the star group that I founded before I left? Where did Yi-One and the rest go? Also, why did my former address, 9 Dragons Bay, become a factory?" As soon as he finished speaking, Gu Yingying's eyes turned red. She could not help but lower her head and say, "Mr. Yi, at the beginning of the invasion of the extraterrestrial civilization, the Star Group contributed the most. They created too many technologies and nurtured too many Chinese cultivators." Tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. It's also because of the Star Group that Earth has been in a stalemate with the extraterrestrial civilization for 5 years. However, in these 5 years, the Star Group has exhausted all their resources, and everyone who can fight has died in battle. Yi Chen's body trembled violently as soon as he heard that. He suppressed the shock in his heart and said, "Then, Yi-One and the rest." Su Yuhan was extremely nervous. "Ms. Yi and the rest are fine." As if sensing his worry, Gu Yingying immediately said. After the star group's blood ran dry and their resources were exhausted, Ms. Yi and the rest planned to fight personally. However, Earth had already reached an agreement with the extraterrestrial civilization at that time. That's why Ms. Yi and the rest survived. She wiped her tears and said, however, after the extraterrestrial civilization descended on Earth, they proposed to punish Ms. Yi and the rest severely. Some of the upper echelons of China compromised. Yi Chen's eyes turned cold as endless sorrow and mockery appeared at the corner of his lips. Gu Yingying nodded slightly and said with a bitter smile, at that time, the upper echelons of China wanted to protect Ms. Yi and the rest. However, for some reason, the public opinion and the international spearhead were all pointed at Ms. Yi and the rest. Everyone accused them of being militaristic, which led to all of this. Yi Chen laughed in grief and indignation. The Star Group had made so many contributions and sacrificed so much for humanity. But in the end, they became the scapegoat and the culprit. Sad, it was too sad. Gu Yingying said with a bitter smile. Later on, China compromised. An extraterrestrial force called Ethereal Palace attacked and forcefully crippled Ms. Yi and the rest's cultivation. Boom! Before she could finish her sentence, she suddenly felt a gush of murderous intent and vicious aura suddenly burst out from the room. Yi Chen's face was livid as he glared at Gu Yingying. Where is this ethereal palace? Who was the one who attacked? Su Yuhan could not help but cry as she sobbed. How could they do this? The ethereal palace is in Tiannan. Gu Yingying's face turned ashen under his aura as she said. It said that the person who attacked was a powerhouse called the Archean Heavenly Lord. At that time, Ms. Yi and the rest had the highest cultivation base among them. She was a beginner stage nascent soul, but she couldn't even withstand a single attack from that person. She took a deep breath in and continued. At that time, the Ethereal Palace planned to execute Ms. Yi and the rest. However, in the end, the Chinese military stepped in to protect them and save their lives. Where are Yi Wen and the rest now? Yi Chun said. They're in Lin City. Gu Yingying glanced at him and said hesitantly. After Ms. Yi and the rest cultivation base was crippled and they became ordinary people, they were bullied and humiliated, but they were unwilling to leave, she said with tears in her eyes. Yuan said that you'll definitely come back, Mr. Yi. If they leave, you won't be able to find them. P.S. I'm out for something. There are only 2 chapters today. The climax is coming. End of this chapter. Chapter 1387. Mr. Yi, Ms. Yi, and the rest have suffered too much over the years. If it were an ordinary person, they would have committed suicide long ago. Gu Yingying also had a sympathetic expression when she mentioned Yuan and the rest. They were so poor that they couldn't even afford to rent a house. They could only live in the slums. I wanted to help them countless times, but Yi Chen's heart ached when he heard that. Although he had not experienced the changes over the past decade, he could still feel the hardships Yuan and the rest had suffered through Gu Yingying's description. Su Yuhan held back her tears and mumbled, Ms. Gu, what about my 9 Dragons Bay's factory now? Well, Gu Yingying said, Star Group closed down after Ms. Yuan and the rest were crippled. The forces and consortiums that were originally affiliated with Star Group in Tiannan turned to the extraterrestrial civilization. At this point, she hesitated. Therefore, the things that originally belonged to Mr. Yi, including 9 Dragons Bay, were forcefully taken away. Yi Chen's eyes were cold, so in other words, the Chung family that occupied my 9 Dragons Bay are the lackeys of the extraterrestrial civilization. Yes, Gu Yingying bit her red lips and said, the extraterrestrial civilization that's guarding Tiannan is the ethereal palace that crippled Ms. Yi and the rest. The 3 wealthy families of Lin City were supported by the ethereal palace. She paused for a moment and said weakly, the 3 wealthy families of Lin City are the Chu family, the Chung family, and the Xiang family. The Chu family is the family that my niece, Chu Qingyu, is from. Very well. Yi Chun smiled in anger and said, I've contributed so much to the upper echelons, but this is how these people treat me? Not only did my people almost die, but my home was also taken away. Ridiculous. This is ridiculous. He was too disappointed. Before he left, he had selflessly passed down countless cultivation knowledge and supported the upper echelons to set up a cultivation university. He even combined cultivation and technology. However, this was what he got in return. Mr. Yi, don't be rash. As if sensing his anger, Gu Yingying's expression changed slightly. The upper echelons have their own reasons. Moreover, things are different now. The current Earth is not what you know. She could not bear to look at Yi Chun and Su Yuhan as she spoke to this point. She comforted them. Mr. Yi, I believe you guys can recover. Seeing that Yi Chun and Su Yuhan looked like they did not have much time left, she subconsciously thought that Yi Chun might have escaped from the ancient desolate realm. I will take back what belongs to me. Yi Chun clenched his fists slowly. His voice was extremely calm. I have plenty of time to settle all of this. Mr. Yi, please listen to my advice. Gu Yingying forced a smile and said, whether it's the Chung family or the ethereal palace, we can't afford to offend them. Mr. Yi, things are different now. After saying that, she took out a storage bag and handed it to Yi Chun. Mr. Yi, there are 3,000 spiritual stones in here. It's my savings over the past few years. Take it, she didn't have a spiritual root, so she didn't step onto the path of cultivation. In addition, she had been injured before, so her martial arts cultivation no longer existed. She was no different from an ordinary person. No need. Yi Chun smiled lightly. Thank you for telling me all of this, Ms. Gu. I know what to do next. After saying that, he asked for Yi Wen and the rest's address and left with Su Yuhan. After they left, Chu Qingyu walked in with Cheng Bo. The former could not help but ask, Auntie, who is that guy? He was once a legend in China. Gu Yingying watched Yi Chun and Cheng Bo leave and mumbled, time has erased everything. The new generation excels the old. The world doesn't recognize mad Southern Yi. Then, she recalled how Yi Chun dominated Tian'an and became the China #1. He even swept through the world with his sword and suppressed the entire world. She could not help but sigh softly to herself. She felt a little emotional that a hero was past his prime. A legend in China? Chu Qingyu's eyes lit up, and she was instantly interested. Is he the peerless god of war, Luo Tianya, or the northern sea heavenly king, Song Chiya, or the Lord of the West, Ning Yutian? Cheng Bo, who was next to her, could not help but be extremely solemn when he heard the names Luo Tianya and Song Chiya. His eyes were filled with fear. Gu Yingying was unwilling to mention it. None of them? Chu Qingyu immediately pursed her lips and said, since none of them are, then what kind of legend is he? He's not worthy of the word legend. As soon as she finished speaking, Gu Yingying, who had always been silent, flew into a rage. She glared at her and scolded, shut up. You're not allowed to be disrespectful to Mr. Yi in the future. Outside Lin City's 8th Ring Road. This place did not belong to Lin City more than 10 years ago. It was a swamp. Due to the poor feng shui and the fact that there was no development value, almost no one cared about it in the past. Later on, as the extraterrestrial civilization descended on Earth and Lin City expanded, this place was naturally included in the expansion. However, due to the congenital deficiency, it was classified as a slum. The so-called slum did not exist more than 10 years ago. However, due to the great changes on Earth, ordinary people could live for 100 to 200 years. Coupled with the fact that everyone cultivated, it gave rise to a dense hierarchy. As a result, the population doubled, and the gap between the rich and the poor increased. Meanwhile, the slum did not just refer to being poor. It also referred to those who did not have any skills and were not qualified to cultivate. In this world where everyone cultivated, they were at the bottom like ants. There were many slums of various sizes in the entire Lin City. Meanwhile, the slum outside the 8th Ring Road occupied thousands of acres. There were densely packed shacks in it. These shacks were dark, damp, and smelly. They could not see the sun or enjoy any plants at all. It was like a corner that was forgotten by the world. At that moment, smoke was rising from a slightly bigger shack in the middle, accompanied by intense coughing. The space inside the house was only about 100 square meters, but it was divided into several single rooms using rags. In each room, there was a single bed. Although the quilt on the bed was extremely clean, it was tattered beyond recognition. One of the largest single rooms was decorated like a living room and a kitchen. The furniture was very simple. There were more than 10 stools, a big iron pot, and a black stove. At that moment, a young man was cooking a bowl of medicine with his body bent over in front of the stove. The young man had a cleft lip, and his body was extremely thin. He seemed to be malnourished. The smoke from the firewood made his face look like a panda. After the young man extinguished the fire, he picked up the stone pot wrapped in a tablecloth and poured the black medicine into the bowl before entering the single room. The young man was clearly scalding hot, but he walked carefully, fearing that he would spill a single drop of the medicine in the bowl. Cough, cough, cough. When he entered the single room, he placed the bowl of medicine on the table and shook his hand before turning around. "Auntie, it's time to drink the medicine." A middle-aged woman laid on the bed before him. Her hair was white, and her face was pale. She would occasionally cough a few times. Although the middle-aged woman was in her 40s and didn't wear any makeup, one could tell from her facial features that she was quite beautiful when she was young. When the middle-aged woman heard the young man's words, she slightly moved and tried her best to sit up. When the young man saw this, he immediately went up to support her. The middle-aged woman looked around and weakly said, "Sick hen, where's your second mother and the rest?" The young man, Sick hen, carefully brought the bowl over and gently blew on it. Ani, the second mother, and the rest went hunting outside the city. They should be back soon, hunting. When the middle-aged woman heard that, her body trembled before she worriedly said, "There are many demonic beasts outside the city, and it's extremely dangerous. We can't defeat them without our cultivation, but they won't listen to us. Auntie, don't worry. The second mother and the rest have set up a trap, so it should be fine." Sikin was also worried in his heart, but he still comforted, "Auntie, drink the medicine while it's hot. That way, you can get better faster." "All right." The middle-aged woman sighed softly, took the bowl of medicine, drank it, and passed the bowl to the former. "Auntie, lie down. I'll make something for you to eat." Sikin scratched his head and smiled. "Yesterday, I found a damaged, low-grade magic artifact in the nearby garbage dump. The pawn shop gave me 5 spiritual stones, which I used to buy rice and 2 caddies of meat. Child, it's been hard on you." The middle-aged woman looked at him in a daze and said with guilt, "It's all because we're useless that you have to suffer." The child before them was only 14 years old, and if it was a decade ago, he would still be in high school. But now, he had to take care of a few weak women. "Auntie, please don't say that." When Sikin heard that, his eyes instantly turned hot. "I was brought up by you guys. If it wasn't for you guys, I would have died a long time ago." End of this chapter. Chapter 1388. Sigh. The middle-aged woman could not help but sigh. On a snowy day 14 years ago, they found a baby wrapped in swaddling clothes on their way back. The baby seemed to have been born not long ago. Due to his hair lip, he was abandoned because of his ugly appearance. At that time, she wanted to send the baby to an orphanage, but the other women could not bear to do so. Since none of them had children, they suggested to adopt him. That went on for 14 years. In those 14 years, the child experienced ups and downs with them and suffered. What was touching was that the child matured very early. He knew that his adoptive mothers were not in good health, so he fought to work to support the family. "Good boy." The middle-aged woman could not help but touch his face with her trembling hand. "If my brother was still here, he would probably like you from the bottom of his heart." "Andy, is he the uncle that you guys have been talking about?" Sechin's eyes lit up when he heard that. "I've been hearing about him, but I don't even know who he is. Can you tell me about him, uncle?" The middle-aged woman was slightly stunned. She then said, not knowing whether to laugh or cry, "You can say that. Your uncle is a legend in our hearts. He was once a legend in China and even on Earth." Her complexion improved as if she had drunk a bowl of medicine. She recounted Yi Chen's experience intermittently. Sikin could not help but be shocked after hearing that. His eyes were filled with admiration. "Uncle is so powerful, but why have I never seen him before?" "Your uncle left this world before you were born. The middle-aged woman's eyes dimmed as she said in a deep voice, "He's been gone for 17 years. I wonder if he's dead or alive. I wonder if we'll ever see him again in this lifetime." Sensing her sadness, Sikhen comforted her immediately. "Auntie, don't worry. Uncle is so powerful. He'll definitely come back one day. I hope so." The middle-aged woman smiled bitterly. Before this, the few of them had the same thought. Even if they fell from a high place to hell, they still believed in it. That was also the reason why they named the child Yi Sikhen. Sikhen, Yi Chun in 4 years. However, they had waited for 17 years. How many more years did a person have in this lifetime? Auntie, don't overthink it. Your priority right now is to take care of your body. I'll go cook a bowl of noodle soup for you." Sikhen comforted. He helped the former lie down and was about to cook when the door of the shed was kicked in. The first to walk in was a young man in a suit and leather shoes. This sudden scene instantly shocked the 14-year-old Si Chun and the beautiful middle-aged woman who was lying on the bed. "Who are you?" Sikhen immediately charged out. The young man covered his nose with his hand and glanced at the situation in the house in disdain. He then looked at the former and said, "Little brat, where are the women in your house? What are you trying to do?" Sikhen coldly looked at Su Tao. "Kid, don't be nervous." The young man in the suit suddenly chuckled. "It's like this. I have a friend who has taken a fancy to your women and plans to marry her." Before he could finish speaking, an old man around the age of 50 slowly walked in. Although the old man was also wearing a suit and leather shoes, his face was incomparably ugly, and his brows were filled with wretchedness. "This is the old man of the Chung family, Chung Ying," the young man in the suit introduced. Although the old man doesn't have a high position in the Chung family, and he doesn't know how to cultivate, he's still a member of the Chung family. If you guys follow him, you can also move out of this slum and live a good life. You're that old pervert from the Chung family? Sikhen looked at the old man in disbelief. A long time ago, there was a rumor in Lin City that there was an old pervert in the Chung family who liked middle-aged women. Furthermore, he used his identity as a member of the Chung family to forcefully marry women. But any woman that followed him wouldn't last more than 3 days. These dead women had cigarette burn marks, teeth marks, and even whip marks on their bodies slapped. The young man in the suit slapped Sichin's face with a grim expression. "What are you talking about? Get those women of your house out. They're not here." Sikhen covered his face as he stubbornly tried to stop them. "Not here." Cheng Ying sneered as he forcefully pushed Sikhen away and lifted the cloth to search. In the end, he saw a middle-aged woman lying on the bed. "What are you guys trying to do?" The middle-aged woman struggled to get up. "So it's Ms. Yuan." Cheng Ying grinned. "It's like this. I've taken a liking to you. Come with me, and you'll be able to enjoy wealth in the future. You don't have to live in this stinky and lowly place anymore." "You're dreaming." Yuan's expression changed. She had never expected that there would still be someone who wouldn't let her go even though she had fallen to such a state. Sikhen charged in with a cleaver and stood before Yuan. He looked at Cheng Ying anxiously. "I'll fight you if you dare to touch my aunt." "Get lost." Cheng Ying kicked him and sent him flying a few meters away. He then walked to Yuan on the bed with a smirk. Although he was old and did not know how to cultivate, he was from the Chung family after all. He had spent money to train his body. How could a 14-year-old man be a match for him? "Chung, how dare you touch me?" Yuan struggled to hide at the corner of the bed and said determinedly, "Don't forget that Gu Yingying from the Chu family is my friend." "Gu Yingying?" Cheng Ying smirked. "She's just a young mistress from a broken family who lives under someone else's roof. If she didn't know some cultivation knowledge, the Chu family wouldn't care about her at all." He could not help but look at Yi when lecherously as he spoke to this point. "They say that you, Yuan, were once the helmsman of Tiannan's overlord, the Star Group, with unparalleled beauty. I, Cheng Ying, would like to experience it for myself." Sikhen, who was lying on the ground, was enraged. He wanted to charge over by instinct, but the young man in the suit who came and grabbed him by the neck and lifted him into the air. "You ugly freak." The young man in the suit looked at Sichin's cleft lip in disgust and said with a ferocious gleam in his eyes, "Do you believe that I can crush you like an ant?" Yuan almost fainted when she saw that. "No, You guys can't touch him. It's fine if you don't kill him. Chung-ing walked to her with a lecherous smile and said as he walked, I'll let him go if you're willing to come with me. Yi-wen's body jolted as soon as that was said. Never had she thought that she, Yi-wen, would end up like this. I'll count to 3. If you're still not a pervert, I'll kill this kid and feed his corpse to the dogs. Chung-ying's eyes flashed fiercely before he gritted his teeth and said, 1. Yi-wen was struggling. 2. Chung-ying sneered. When he saw that the former still refused to compromise, he couldn't help but say, 3. Yi-wen closed her eyes in despair. No, I promise you. At that moment, a middle-aged woman's voice suddenly came from outside. Yi-wen, your relative is here to see you. As his voice fell, Chung-ying and the others couldn't help but turn around to look. Even Yi-wen, who was already in despair, was no exception. Ever since Star Group closed down, how could they have any friends or relatives? Under everyone's gaze, a middle-aged woman in shabby clothes and an apron walked in with a man and a woman. Little brother, this is Yi-wen's home. The middle-aged woman turned around and smiled at the man and woman behind her. I still have things to do, so I won't disturb you anymore. With that, she walked out. Thank you, Yi-chen said gratefully and took a step out. He looked at the entire house calmly. His gaze wandered past the man in the suit who was strangling Sick-hen and Chung-ying. Eventually, his gaze landed on the pale-faced, gray-haired, middle-aged woman on the bed. At that moment, his body froze. When Yi-wen's gaze landed on the former, her delicate body suddenly trembled. Tears suddenly surged out of her initially cold gaze. Brother, end of this chapter. Chapter 1389. She could not stop shaking as she stared at Yi-chan. She could not bear to move her eyes away at all. Brother, is that you? It had been 17 years. She had been missing and looking forward to the figure in the distance for countless days and nights. However, she felt like she was dreaming when she saw him now. She was afraid that the familiar figure would disappear before her eyes in the next moment. Yi-chen took a few steps forward and held her hand gently. He said in a trembling voice, It's me. I'm back, what? At that moment, Yi-wen, who was stubborn, cried out loud. She then fell into Yi-chen's embrace hard and cried like a teenage girl who felt wronged. Her tears flowed crazily. Her heart-wrenching and aggrieved cries spread to countless nearby sheds. Yi-chan felt a lump in his throat when he sensed her grievance. Endless self-blame surged within him. Second uncle Yi-ming had been kind to him since he was young. It was also because of him that second uncle and second aunt died tragically. He had sworn to take good care of Yi when in front of second uncle and second aunt's coffin. Never had he thought that Yi-chan would suffer so much. He could not help but pat Yi-wen's back lightly as he thought to this point. He took a deep breath in and said, Be good, don't cry. I'm back. I won't let anyone bully you anymore. Yi-wen let go of Yi-chan after she finally calmed down. She could not hold back her tears as she said, Brother, I thought I'd never see you again. Silly child, what nonsense are you talking about? Yi-chen was between laughter and tears. Apart from feeling a little embarrassed, she could not help but say sadly, I'm not a child anymore. I'm old. I'm old. Yi-chen was on the verge of tears when he heard those 3 words. Old. The girl who was once in her prime was old. Now, she looked like a 50-year-old woman. Time had left its mark on her body. Yi-wen stretched her hand out and caressed the wrinkles on Yi-chen's face and his pale face. She could not help but cry. Brother, how did you become like this? There was a small accident. It's not a big problem. Yi-chen chuckled softly and turned around to look at Su-yuhan behind him. Look who this is? Yi-wen looked up and was stunned. She exclaimed in surprise, Sister-in-law. When Su-yuhan wiped her tears away and hugged her. She sobbed, I'm sorry that your brother and sister-in-law didn't take good care of you. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's good that you're back. Yi-wen comforted her. I say, are you guys done crying? At this moment, an untimely voice sounded from the side. Even if you want to cry, wait until this woman and I have consummated our marriage. Surprisingly, it was Chung-ying who interrupted everything. Exactly, the young man in the suit said coldly. You're making it look like you're crying at a funeral. You're messing up my mood. Yi-chen then turned around to look at them. He had been focusing on Yi-Wen when he entered the room earlier, so he neglected the duo. Sickly invalid. You are this woman's elder brother, right? The young man in the suit glanced at Yi-Chun wryly. Well, this old Master Chung has his eyes on your sister. If you're smart, it's best that you persuade your sister to agree to this. Say that again. Agree to what? Yi-Chun took a step forward and looked at him expressionlessly. Although he concealed his aura, his deep gaze still made the young man in the suit's heart jolt. He retreated a few steps back by instinct. Is there something wrong with your ears? He scoffed and said, I'm saying that old Master Chung wants to marry your sister. Old Master Chung is from the Chung family. You know the Chung family, don't you? They're one of the 3 wealthy families in Lin City. Countless people want to join them no matter what. He did not notice that Chung Ying was glaring at Yi-Chun at the moment. He was shaking as if he had seen something terrifying. Mad Southern Yi. That name echoed in his head crazily. 17 years ago, he was only in his 30s. Although the Chung family had yet to prosper back then, he had seen Yi-Chun on television. One could say that the name Mad Southern Yi was like a myth to him back then. He was like a god that he looked up to. However, he was looking at this killing god at such a close distance now. Yi-Chun looked at him calmly and said coldly, Are you going to marry my sister? Plop. Chung Ying knelt hard onto the ground and said while his body was shaking, I wouldn't dare to. It's a misunderstanding. Meanwhile, his sudden action shocked the young man in the suit next to him. He looked at him with his eyes wide open and said, Old Master Chung, what are you doing? Misunderstanding? Yi-Chun lifted his head to look at Yi-Wen. Is everything really a misunderstanding like what he said? Yi-Wen looked at Chung Ying hatefully and told him everything that had happened. Explain. Yi-Chun looked at Chung Ying in a condescending manner and said coldly, If you can't explain yourself, I'll kill your entire family tonight. No. Chung Ying's body went limp upon hearing that. He then collapsed onto the ground in fear. Mr. Yi, you can't kill me. You can't kill me. I'm from the Chung family. How dare you touch him? The young man in the suit also scolded. He's from the Chung family. If you dare touch him, the Chung family won't. At that moment, a glaring saber gleam flashed through the air all of a sudden. It then slashed across Chung Ying's neck. Everything happened so fast that Chung Ying did not even feel the pain. Chung Ying covered the wound on his neck that was getting bigger with his hand. Fresh blood dyed his hand red as he looked at Yi-Chun in disbelief. The young man in the suit did not move at all. Fear filled his face. Never had he thought that Yi-Chun would really dare to kill him. A long while later, the young man in the suit sensed a terrifying gaze. He shuddered and knelt hard onto the ground. Spare me. I was forced to do this. Yi-Chun interrupted him before he was done speaking. Clean this up. My wife doesn't like blood. Sure. The young man in the suit was stunned at first, then he snapped back to his senses. He knelt onto the ground and cleaned everything up immediately. The young man in the suit only looked at Yi-Chun in fear after the last bit of blood disappeared. Send his body to the Chung family. Yi-Chun looked at him calmly. There was monstrous killing intent in his voice that tore the galaxy apart. Tell them that I, Mad Southern Yi, am back. The young man in the suit was stunned again. Not only did Yi-Chun not kill him, but he even asked him to bring Chung Ying's body back to the Chung family to complain. He could not wrap his head around all of that. However, seeing that Yi-Chun did not look like he was faking it, he ran out with Chung Ying's body while shuddering. Brother, after he left, Yi-Wen, who had been silent, could not help but look at Yi-Chun. She said worriedly, The Chung family is not to be trifled with. Her impression of Yi-Chun was still at the beginner-level nascent soul before he went to the ancient desolate realm. Such a cultivation base was not low even in today's society, but he was no longer at the top. Don't worry. Yi-Chun nodded lightly and said, I won't die. I'll take revenge for all of you guys. He could not help but look at Su Yuhan after saying that. Seeming to have noticed the apology in his eyes, Su Yuhan could not help but say, while smiling, Dummy, I won't stop you this time. Although she was kind, it did not mean that she had no bottom line. After returning to Earth, no matter if it was the 9 dragons Bay being occupied or what happened to Yi-Wen and the rest, they had crossed her bottom line. Sure, Seeing that Yi Chun insisted, Yuan stopped persuading him. She trusted Yi Chun from the bottom of her heart. Since Yi Chun was so confident, he must have some tricks up his sleeves. At that moment, a timid voice came from the side. "Hey, are you my uncle?" Yi Chun looked over and saw a young man around 14 or 15 years old looking at him with his eyes wide open in excitement. "Uncle?" Yi Chun was a little confused by the way he addressed him. He could not help but look at Yuan by instinct. "This kid," Yuan said while smiling, "his name is Yi Siken. We adopted him when he was young." Yi Chun could not help but walk over after listening to her story. He patted the little girl's head. "Well done. Thank you for everything you've done for me." Yi Siken scratched his head shyly. At the same time, hurried footsteps came from outside the house. Subsequently, a few ladies walked in. They were all over 40 years old, but they looked exhausted. They looked like ordinary middle-aged women who had been through hardships. When Yi Chun looked at the ladies, time seemed to have stopped. Time seemed to have stopped all of a sudden. End of this chapter. Chapter 1390. Yi Chun's heart twitched hard as he looked at the few ladies who were staring at him blankly at the door. He then opened his arms slowly. The ladies were Tang Ning, the young mistress of the Tang family in Hong Kong, Xiaoya, Yi Chun's first disciple in Miaojiang, and Yu Shasha from Ganzhou, master, brother. Almost at that moment, the few ladies pounced on him and hugged him while crying emotionally. Yi Chun comforted the ladies one by one. At the same time, he quietly listened to the grievances they had suffered in the past few years. An hour later, the ladies finally calmed down. Yi Chun glanced at the shabby and simple shack. His eyes flickered, and he took a deep breath in. He looked at the ladies and said, "You guys have suffered all these years. Now that you're back, we don't feel like we've suffered anymore." Xiaoya's temperament was as cold as before. However, this former campus belle had many traces of aging on her face. The rest of the ladies agreed with what she said. Yi Chun smiled lightly and gestured for them to sit down. He then said with a grim expression, "Tell me, what exactly happened?" At the same time, in the wealthy Chung family of Lin City. At that moment, a lady in gorgeous clothes knelt hard on the ground in the Chung residence. She said in an extremely aggrieved manner, "Uncle, you must help me." If Yi Chun were there, he would definitely realize that the lady kneeling on the ground was the person he had slapped at Nine Dragons Bay, Chung Li Shue. Meanwhile, a middle-aged man in a dragon costume was sitting on the armchair before the lady. Did that brat really say that? The middle-aged man's temples were white. He stared at Chung Li Shue, who was on the ground like lightning. His sharp and terrifying gaze made the latter shudder. If there were outsiders present, they would definitely realize that the middle-aged man was the current head of the Chung family, Chung Kuanpeng. He had a peak golden core cultivation base and was known as the Chung family's #1. He was also one of the 3 people who stood at the peak of Lin City. Yes, Chung Lishua's heart skipped a beat when she met his gaze. She then pretended to be aggrieved and said, "Forget that brat slapped me a few times. He even said that my family is nothing to him." She then added fuel to the fire. "Then, that brat said that he wants you to kneel and apologize to him at Nine Dragons Bay tomorrow morning. Otherwise, or what?" Chung Kuanpeng's eyes darkened. Chung Lishue's lips trembled as he said weakly, Or else he'll destroy my Chung clan." Okay. Chung Kuanpeng was so angry that he laughed. A cold glint appeared in his eyes. "Ever since my Chung family rose to the top of Lin City, this is the first time someone dared to look down on my Chung family." Even though his tone was extremely calm, Chung Lishue, who was kneeling on the ground, had a flash of hatred in his eyes. She understood the patriarch's temperament very well. The more the patriarch acted like this, the more the brat who humiliated her would definitely die. "Brother Chung." At that moment, an indifferent voice rang out from the armchair to the side. "This person can make Miss Chung unable to resist. He must be quite strong." The person who spoke was a middle-aged man dressed in luxurious clothes. The man's gaze was malicious, and his entire body was filled with a vigorous aura. This person was the head of the Chu family, Chu Mo, one of the 3 overlords that stood above the tens of millions of people in Lin City. Shui is only on foundation building. Since that brat could slap Shui He's probably on intermediate stage or even mastery stage foundation building. Chang Kuanpeng's eyes turned grim at first when he heard that. He then scoffed and said, "But so what if that's the case? Since he dares to offend my Chung family, even his golden core patriarch must die." He turned his head and said to the young man in black who was standing aside respectfully, "Tian go with Shuer tomorrow. I want this brat's head." "Yes, godfather." The young man in black bowed and said. The hatred in Chung Lishua's eyes grew as soon as he said that. He seemed to have seen Yi Qin's tragic end. One must know that the young man in black was Chung Tian. He was the adopted son of the Chung family's patriarch, Chung Kuanpeng. He was only 30 years old, but he had already achieved perfected foundation building. Golden Core was just around the corner. With his help, it would be a success. At that moment, the sound of hurried footsteps suddenly rang out from outside. Then, an expressionless gray-robed elder quickly walked in. The old man in gray ignored everyone and walked straight to Chung Kuanpeng. He whispered into his ear, "Let him in." Chung Kuanpeng's eyes were extremely grim. Soon after the old man in gray left, he brought a young man in a suit in. The young man in the suit was carrying a bloody person in his arms. Chung Lishue, who had retreated aside, had his pupils locked when he saw the bloody person in his arms. "Uncle Ling," Chung Kuanpeng glared at the young man in the suit with his grim eyes. "Tell me, who killed Chung Ying?" Chung Ying was his cousin. Although he did not have a high position in the Chung family, he was still a direct descendant of the family. Now that he was killed, how could he not be furious? The young man in the suit knelt hard onto the ground and stammered. "Patriarch Chung Old Master Chung was killed by a young man." Subsequently, he told everything that happened. He said while shaking, "That man asked me to bring a message to Patriarch Chung. He said that he, Mad Southern Yi, is back." As soon as he was done speaking, Chung Kuanpeng, who looked grim, was stunned at first. Chung Kuanpeng, who had a gloomy expression, was stunned at first. Then the expression on his face froze. He seemed to have thought of something as a hint of shock appeared in his eyes. He was not the only one. Even the Chu family's patriarch, Chu Mo, who was sitting at the side, sat up in shock. He looked at the young man in the suit in shock. "Say it again. What's that person's name?" He said his name is Mad Southern Yi. The young man in the suit did not know what was going on, but he repeated it anyway. Slap. At that moment, Chu Mo's hand, which was on the armchair, trembled violently. Then he broke one of the armrests. He looked at Chung Kuanpeng and said while his throat trembled, "Brother Chung, that person is back." Mad Southern Yi. Chung Kuanpeng suppressed a shock in his heart and said after taking a deep breath in, "Apart from him, who else in this world dares to call themselves that?" As he said that, he clenched his fists and enunciated word by word. "But how is that possible? That person has disappeared for 17 years. Rumor has it that he died on Heavenly Road." The two of them's reactions confused Chung Lishue and the rest. They did not expect the two of them, who had always been extremely dignified, to lose their composure like that. "Uncle, who is this Mad Southern Yi?" Chung Lishue's eyes moved, and he could not help but ask. Chung Kuanpeng looked at her coldly and finally said, "This person was once a legend in China. He was known as the #1 person on Earth 17 years ago. When he dominated the world and swept through Earth, you guys were still ignorant children." Chu Mo said, almost losing his composure. Chapter 1391. To the older generation, the name Mad Southern Yi was not only a legend, but also an undefeatable legend. He was a peerless god of death, an Azura fiend. These three words represented slaughter and bloodshed. TSK. Chung Lishue and the rest could not help but suck in a breath of cold air when they heard that. Their faces turned pale, and the young man kneeling on the ground was even more shocked. In the end, Chu Mo spoke. "Brother Chung, if this person really returns, I'm afraid our families will be in trouble. Don't forget about the Star Group. Among the 3 wealthy families in Lin City, other than the Xiang family, the Chung and Chu families could be said to have risen because of the Ethereal Palace's suppression of the Star Group." "I know," Chung Kunpeng interrupted him, his expression changing nonstop. "However, I still don't believe that this person is Mad Southern Yi." "Big Uncle, Have you forgotten? At this moment, Chung Lishua suddenly said, so what if he's the real mad Southern Yi? Things are different now. Not only is our Chung family one of the 3 wealthy families in Lin City, but we also have the ethereal palace behind us. As soon as she finished speaking, Chung Kunping's expression brightened up. He then laughed out loud. You're right. This person is just a legend from 17 years ago. Times are different now. What can he do to us? That's right. Chuamo also reacted and immediately said, this person is at most a nascent soul. I'm afraid a mere nascent soul is nothing in the ethereal palace. Uncle Zhong. Chung Kunping suddenly looked at the gray-robed old man. Go to the slums and pass a message to that person. Tell him that we'll invite him to the ethereal immortal residence tonight and apologize. Uncle Zhong left in confusion. Great. Brother Cheng's plan is brilliant. Only Chu Mo could guess the former's thoughts at a glance. He could not help but clap his hands and sigh. Not only can we verify that brat's identity, but we also have a way out. If this brat dares to make a move in the ethereal immortal residence, we'll definitely be able to get Elder Su of the ethereal palace to kill him. The two of them looked at each other and laughed out loud. In the slums of Lin City, as Yi Wen and the rest recounted, Yi Chen finally understood the series of changes that had taken place on Earth over the past 17 years. Among the foreign enemies that invaded Earth, other than the sect from the larger stars, there were also foreign races. The so-called foreign races included the monster race, the beast race, and the warhounds race. Among them, the foreign sects of the major regions had reached an agreement with the countries on Earth. However, the mutated race refused to negotiate. They occupied the desolate and remote areas of every country on Earth and attempted to occupy human cities. For this reason, every country in the world had been fighting against the mutated race for 17 years. Yichen could not help but look at Yi Wen and the rest after hearing that. Are you saying that someone survived among the many powerhouses in the Kunlun ruins? That's right. The number 1 person in the Kunlun ruins, Zi Qingtsong, survived. Luo Tianya and the rest of the youths also survived. Yi Wen nodded and said, however, among them, old senior Zi Qingtsong went to the outer realm to fight a great enemy and was heavily injured. He has been in closed-door cultivation for over 10 years now. I wonder how he is. What about Luo Tianya and the rest? Yi Chen asked. Tang Ning said, Luo Tianya's personality changed drastically because of Luo Shuyao's death. He went to the eastern border to resist the mutated race alone. In just 17 years, he reached the stage of perfected nascent soul and obtained the title of peerless god of war. Luo Shuiyao is dead. Yi Chen looked sad. Tang Ning continued. Many youths in the Kunlun ruins have joined Luo Tianya to guard the eastern border of China. They have a 1 million human cultivator army. Since Luo Tianya has such achievements, why did he watch my star group be destroyed? Why did he watch you guys fall to this state? Yi Chen said. Tang Ning forced a smile. It's not that he doesn't want to save us, but it's said that the foreign sects have set up 12 true origin shackles in his body. As soon as he walks out of the eastern border, he'll die from a hemorrhage. Yi Chen smiled from extreme anger. Very good. Yi Wen sighed softly and said, Brother, after all the upper echelons of the star group died in battle, we fell apart. Those who used to rely on us also defected to the foreign sections. However, you don't have to be too angry. She could not help but look at Yi Chen with a smile as she spoke to this point. Do you still remember the disciple you took in Japan? Song Chia? Yi Chen recalled. Yes, that's him. Yi Wen said with a smile. This brat is very promising now. He's guarding the northern border of China against the foreign army. He earned the title of the Northern Sea Heavenly King and commands an army of 1 million human cultivators. Yi Chen's expression eased up slightly when he heard that. He had never given the disciple he had taken in Japan any guidance after he passed down the inheritance. He did not expect him to have such a fortuitous encounter. What about Lin Tai's child, Lin Hao? Yi Chen asked. That was what he was most concerned about. Lin Tai died for him. Although he had reincarnated as a human, Yi Chen would not be able to face him in the future if anything happened to his son. Lin Hao is being trained by Song Chia. The little guy is already 21 years old and is extremely good at lightning techniques. Xiaoya said sadly. However, Qi has also been targeted. 12 true origin shackles have been set up in his body, so he can't take care of us. To be precise, most of the people related to us have been wiped out. Only a small number of people with extremely high status in China have survived. Yuan sighed faintly. Even though they survived, they've been shackled, and they can't do anything they want. In other words, some foreign sects are targeting us on purpose. Yi Chen's eyes turned cold as he said, "Do you know which foreign sects did it? For example, Luo Tianya and Song Chiya." "I'm not sure." Yuan shook her head and said, "These forces never show themselves and are extremely cautious. However, I'm sure that they're all in China." "What about Old Wang?" Yi Chen suddenly thought of this person. Before he left, the person who contacted the higher-ups was Old Wang. Old Wang had also promised to treat Star Group well. Yuan said with a bitter smile, "Old Wang died of illness more than 10 years ago. At that time, he represented the military to protect us. However, after his death, the person who replaced him was hostile to us. Forget it." Yi Chen shook his head and said, "Now that I'm back, I won't let you guys suffer any more grievances. Brother, but we don't have any cultivation base. We can't help you at all. We're no different from cripples." Yuan said with a pale face, "If you lose your cultivation base, you can just cultivate it back." Yi Chen smiled lightly and waved his sleeve. A jade slip appeared before the girls immediately. "There are a few cultivation methods that I've imprinted in here. It won't be a problem for you to cultivate to tribulation stage. Choose one that's suitable for you." He waved his sleeve again, and a mountain of spirit stones and dozens of bottles of medicinal pills appeared in front of the girls. Some of these things were in his storage, but most of them were obtained from the Immortal Palace secret realm. Yu Sha, who had been silent all this while, lowered her head and said sadly, "Brother Yi, but Tang Ning and I don't have spiritual roots." Chapter 1392. Yi Chan smiled mysteriously and a bottle of medicinal pills appeared in his hand. There are 2 Qi repair pills among them. They can help you shape your spiritual root. The first time he went to the ghost ship, his purpose was to find the essence gold fruit that could refine the Qi repair pills. Then he successfully found it in the Tianfeng Sea area of the ancient desolate realm and refined a total of 8 Qi repair pills. As soon as he said that, Tang Ning and Yu Shasha's bodies trembled. Their eyes widened as they stared at the bottle of medicinal pills in disbelief. They could even form a spiritual root after birth. Yi Chen smiled and said, "You guys can start cultivating now. I'll protect you guys. As for your aging looks, you can recover them with the help of the face restoration pill after you enter Foundation Building." The girls no longer hesitated and immediately found a suitable cultivation method for them from the jade slip. Then they began to absorb energy into their bodies with the help of the spirit stones on the spot and started cultivating again. As for Yu Shasha and Tang Ning, after consuming the Qi repair pill, one of them was born with the 3 spiritual roots of earth, metal, and water, while the other was born with the 4 spiritual roots of wood, metal, fire, and earth. Such aptitude was considered extremely poor in the eyes of others. However, Yi Chen never cared about spiritual roots. It did not matter if one's aptitude was poor. As long as one had enough resources, one could make up for everything. In just 2 hours, with Yi Chen's help, the 4 girls had all recovered to beginner stage foundation building. They had also recovered their looks with the help of the face restoration pill, turning from middle-aged women in their 40s into young women in their 20s. This scene made the girls extremely excited. How could they have ever thought that they would have such a day? The 14-year-old Yi Sikin was dumbfounded as he stood at the side. His eyes were filled with envy. "Little guy, I can't forget you." Yi Chen patted his head and said, "Your aptitude isn't bad. You actually have the rare fire and with dual spiritual roots. You're a natural seedling for alchemy." Meeting the little guy's expectant gaze, he changed the topic. "However, because you have a cleft lip, you can't cultivate before you correct your face. Otherwise, you'll have this cleft lip for the rest of your life." Only then did Yi Sikin suppress his excitement and nod. "All right, now that you've recovered, there's no need to live in this place anymore." Eventually, Yi Chen stood up and said to the girls, "I bought a guest house. You guys can stay there with me. We'll move back after we take back Nine Dragons Bay. The girls nodded in agreement. At this moment, a heavy knock came from outside. When Yi Sik-hin went to open the door, Yi-won and the rest were stunned when they saw the person standing outside. At that moment, there was an old man in a gray robe standing at the door. The old man looked at everyone with a smile and said, "May I know which one of you is called Mad Southern Yi?" "I am." "Who are you?" Yi-chun stared at him. The old man immediately smiled and said, "This old man is the Chung family steward. My name is Uncle Zhong. I'm here to deliver something to Mr. Yi on behalf of the Chung family's head." Yi-won and the rest tensed up as soon as he was done speaking. The Chung family sent people here as soon as Yi-chun killed Chung-ing. How could they not overthink? Before the people could speak, Uncle Zhong took out a purple gold invitation card and handed it to Yi-chun. He said, "Mr. Yi, the Chung family's master has invited you to the ethereal immortal residence for a banquet at 9 p.m. sharp." Yi-chun subsequently smiled upon hearing that. "I've killed someone from your family. Not only are you not enraged, but you're even kind enough to invite me to a banquet? It's just a misunderstanding." The smile on Uncle Zhong's face did not fade away. "Moreover, when Mr. Yi swept through the earth 17 years ago, my family was shocked. I regret not being able to witness Mr. Ye's glory from a close distance." Interesting, Yi-chun was calm for a while. Subsequently, he grabbed the invitation card through the air and said, "Go back. Just tell them that I'll be there on time tonight." As soon as he said that, Yi-won and the rest of the girls turned pale. Their lips moved slightly, but they hesitated to speak. After Uncle Zhong left, Yi-won could not help it anymore. She looked at Yi-chun and said, "Brother, you shouldn't have accepted that invitation card." Master Xiao Ye frowned slightly and said, "The Chung family is famous for taking revenge for the smallest grievance. I'm afraid they're up to no good by inviting you to a banquet." "Yi-chun?" Su Yuhan looked at Yi-chun. "Don't worry." Yi-chun chuckled softly as his eyes flickered. "So what if it's a Hongmin banquet? I like to see if the Chung family has the ability to go against the heavens." He did not plan to let the Chung family go. However, the Chung family was nothing to him. What he really cared about was the foreign sect behind the Chung family, the Ethereal Palace. Now that the Chung family had taken the initiative to invite him, it was exactly what he wanted. When night fell, Yi-chun walked to the ethereal immortal residence after arranging for Yi-won and the rest to return to the guest house that he had bought. The ethereal immortal residence was located in the most luxurious place in Lin City. It was rumored that it was the property of the Ethereal Palace. It was said that a cup of ordinary spiritual tea cost more than 10 spirit stones. It was a famous money-squandering place. At that moment, there were groups of people in luxurious clothes walking in slowly at the entrance of the ethereal immortal residence in an orderly manner. It was because Lin City's annual exchange event would be held there tonight. Although the participants were all the younger generation of Lin City's cultivation world, there would still be people from the older generation of the families watching secretly. Where there were people, there would be fights. It seemed like an exchange event, but it was actually a way for the families to compete. The family that came first would get most of Lin City's resources for the next year. Therefore, the families were excited. At the same time, there were countless television stations and cultivation training classes joining, sponsoring advertisements, fighting for traffic and benefits. Among the crowd, a lady in white who was dressed very nicely turned her head to look at a young man in black behind her. "Chung Bo, the Chung family sent the three of you this time. Are you confident that you can get into the top 10? "It's hard to say." Chung Bo's expression turned serious as he shook his head. "My family has dominated the leaderboard for 5 years. The other families aren't convinced. I heard that they've spent a lot of resources to train many young talents this time. It'll be very difficult for me to get into the top 10. The man and lady were Chu Qingyu and Chung Bo. I see. Chu Qingyu's beautiful eyes dimmed, but she said while smiling, "Don't worry. I believe you. The man that Chu Qingyu, is not an ordinary man. That's..." Chung Bo looked at the crowd and smiled proudly. "This time, I've cultivated a sword technique that I've never used before. If I catch them off guard, they won't be able to win." Before he could finish speaking, his gaze was fixed on a thin figure who was walking towards the misty, immortal abode in the distance. Cheng Bo's gaze paused. That person is what's wrong. Chu Qingyu followed his gaze and looked over. Then, she seemed to have thought of something and could not help but shout. Yi Chun, hearing someone call him, Yi Chun, who had just walked to the door, lifted his head and looked over. He said in surprise, "Why are you guys here?" End of this chapter. Chapter 1393. I wanted to ask you why you're here. Chu Qingyu pulled Cheng Bo over immediately. She looked at Yi Chun in shock and said, "Don't tell me you're here to participate in this exchange event too." Exchange event? Yi Chun was slightly stunned. He then shook his head and said, "No, I'm here to meet someone." Meet someone? Chu Qingyu frowned slightly and looked at him again. But the ethereal immortal residence has a clear rule that you can't enter without an invitation. Before Yi Chun could speak, she nodded and said, "I know you know my aunt, but she doesn't have the ability to let you in." Cheng Bo, who was next to her, looked at Yi Chun with a gleam in his eyes. He then took the initiative to say with a smile, "Since brother you want to go in, why don't you follow us?" At that moment, Chu Qingyu could not help but look at the former suspiciously. Clearly, she did not expect him to be so generous. Seeing that Cheng Bo had spoken, she could only look at Yi Chun and say, "You can go in, but the people inside are the upper class of Lin City. Remember not to speak nonsense, and don't offend anyone." "There's no need," Yi Chun said. Chu Qingyu interrupted him and said, "Although I don't know how you know my aunt, if you offend someone, even I can't save you." Before she could finish, she saw Yi Chun turn around and walk to the door. He took out a purple gold invitation and handed it to the guard. The guard immediately bowed and gestured for him to enter. A purple gold invitation? Almost at that instant, Chu Qingyu and Cheng Bo, who were behind him, both stared at the purple gold invitation card. Chu Qingyu's beautiful eyes widened as she watched Yi Chun's disappearing figure. She mumbled, "Why does he have an invitation? And it's purple gold." Cheng Bo, who was beside her, narrowed his eyes and said sourly, "Maybe he stole it." There were less than 10 purple gold invitations in the entire Lin City, and all of them were in the hands of the upper echelons of the various wealthy families. How could he not be shocked that Yi Chun had a purple gold invitation in his hand? As soon as Yi Chun stepped into the first floor of the ethereal immortal residence, he saw that the spacious hall was crowded. Countless people were talking about the exchange event. The 5th floor? Yi Chun glanced at the invitation in his hand and looked at the 5th floor. He was about to go up. "It's you." At that moment, an extremely resentful voice suddenly came from behind him. Then, he saw a gorgeously dressed woman quickly walk in. The noisy surroundings instantly quietened down. Everyone's gazes were directed over at the same time. After seeing the woman's face clearly, someone immediately exclaimed, "It's Miss Cheng Lixue of the Cheng clan." Why is Miss Cheng Lixue walking toward that young man? Something doesn't seem right. At that moment, many people were looking back and forth between Yi Chun and Cheng Lixue. All sorts of whispers could be heard. Cheng Lixue glared at Yi Chun and said resentfully, "There's a path to heaven, but you chose to barge into hell instead." Just when she was secretly thinking about how she was going to torture Yi Chun tomorrow, she did not expect to see him here. As she recalled the few slaps that Yi Chun had given her during the day, an irrepressible hatred rose within her. Someone in the crowd immediately noticed and couldn't help but chuckle. "That kid seems to have offended Miss Cheng. Who is this brat? How dare he offend Miss Cheng? Doesn't he know that the Cheng family is behind Miss Cheng?" There's going to be a good show today. Some people were teasing while others were gloating. Chu Qingyu and Cheng Bo, who came in later, noticed that as well. Chu Qingyu's expression changed slightly. She wanted to help by instinct, but Cheng Bo held her back tightly. Yi Chun glanced at Cheng Lixue coldly. He then looked away and walked to the 5th level. "Stop right there." Cheng Lixue almost exploded when she saw that he was ignoring her. She walked up and stopped him directly. She said coldly, "I'll give you a chance now. As long as you kneel and kowtow to me 3 times, I'll leave your body in one piece." Sister Shui, Chu Qingyu, who was in the crowd, could not take it anymore. She broke free from Cheng Bo's hand and took a few steps forward. She looked at Yi Chun and said, "Yi Chun, what's wrong with you? Why did you provoke Sister Shui? You guys know each other?" Cheng Lixue's face was cold. Chu Qingyu smiled immediately and said, Sister Shui, Yi Chun is my aunt's friend. Is there a misunderstanding between you guys? Misunderstanding? Cheng Lishue smirked coldly. Chu Qingyu, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't be a busybody. Otherwise, don't blame me for not showing you respect. She looked at Yi Chun with resentment again as she spoke to this point. Brat, Neil. I don't want to repeat myself a third time. Chu Qingyu secretly sighed upon hearing that. She could not help but look at Yi Chun. Yi Chun, if you don't want to die, you should I still kneel? Yi Chun chuckled softly. He then extended his hand and grabbed Cheng Lishue directly. Why do you want to die again and again? At that moment, everyone's expression changed drastically, especially Cheng Lishue. She did not expect Yi Chun to dare to fight in the ethereal residence. How dare you touch my family? Do you have a death wish? At that moment, a man in black suddenly shot out from the crowd. The majestic true origin energy aura made many people's expressions change. It's the Cheng family master's godson, Cheng Tian. It's said that he's only 30 years old, but he's already at perfected foundation building. He's known as one of the most promising candidates to win this exchange meet. That brat is doomed now that he's here. Exclamations and sighs were heard from the crowd. At the same time, Chu Qingyu could not help but sigh. Cheng Tian was a genius that the Cheng family master had nurtured with all his heart. He could be ranked top 3 among the younger generation in Lin City. To her, Yi Chun was dead meat. Brat, you deserve to die for insulting my family. Cheng Tian formed a terrifying seal with both of his hands. He seemed to be pushing a gigantic millstone in the air as he charged at Yi Chun. Cheng Lishue smirked viciously. His cold voice sent chills down people's spines. Brother Tian, don't kill him. Killing him would be letting him off too easily. I want to torture him, chop off his limbs, extract his soul, and refine it day and night. However, Yi Chun slapped in the next second. He was neither fast nor slow, as if he was slapping a mosquito. Bang! Cheng Tian's body turned into a bloody mist, and blood splattered everywhere. In an instant, the entire first floor fell into a dead silence. Everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. Chu Qingyu stood there blankly. The smile on Cheng Lishue's face froze. Her eyes were wide open as if she had seen a ghost. Chapter 1394. As Cheng Tian's blood splattered on the spot, everyone was shocked. In the spacious hall, countless dumbfounded eyes landed on the young man with white hair and a skinny body. He killed Cheng Tian with a single slap? One must know that Cheng Tian was the genius of the Cheng family, one of the 3 wealthy families in Lin City. He was personally trained by the family leader, Cheng Kuanpeng, since he was young. He was only over 30 years old, but he was known as one of the most promising candidates to become a Golden Core Patriarch. Who is that? Why does he have such ability? He must be a Golden Core Patriarch to be able to kill Cheng Tian with a single slap. But why have I never seen him before? Cheng Tian is dead. This is getting out of hand. The originally deathly silent scene was suddenly broken by waves of uproar. Why you dare to kill Brother Tian? At that moment, an extremely sharp and horrified voice came out of Cheng Lishue's mouth. At that moment, she looked at Yi Chun with fear in her eyes. You're dead. I guarantee that you're dead. What the entire Cheng family did not know was that Cheng Lishue and Cheng Tian had broken the rules and slept together countless times. Now that Yi Chun had killed Cheng Tian, how could she not go crazy? Yi Chun grabbed the air and grabbed her directly. B*TSH, go to hell first. Seeing this, everyone cried out in surprise. Not only did Yi Chun kill Cheng Tian, but he also wanted to kill Cheng Lishue. He was offending the Cheng family. Yi Chun, don't act recklessly. At the same time, Chu Qingyu, who was standing aside, snapped back to her senses. She stopped him immediately. Stop. Don't make the same mistake again. Otherwise, there'll be no place for you in the entire Lin City. She looked at Yi Chun with a complicated gaze when she was done speaking. She thought that Yi Chun looked weak and weak. Never had she thought that he would kill Cheng Tian with a single slap. One must know that Cheng Tian's cultivation base was much more powerful than hers. Bo took a step forward and looked at Yi Chen coldly. Brother Yi, let go of my sister Shui and kneel to be bound. I can beg my family to spare your life. Really? Yi Chen smiled lightly and looked at Li Shui in his hand coldly. Grow some brains in your next life. There are some people that you can't afford to offend. No, you can't kill me. Li Shui was hysterical. Almost at that moment, an incomparably deep voice exploded in the hall. Mr. Yi, please stop. It's the patriarch. The patriarch is here. Hearing this extremely familiar voice, Bo and Li Shui's faces immediately surged with joy. The head of the Cheng family, Cheng Kuanpeng, is here. What? You have to know that Patriarch Cheng is a perfected golden core cultivator, one of the top 3 people in Lin City. Hearing Bo's words, the surrounding spectators also exclaimed in surprise. Chu Qingyu's expression changed slightly. She glanced at Yi Chen as if she could not bear to look at him. She then shook her head and said, Yi Chen, you've made a big deal out of this. Even Uncle Cheng is here now. Even I can't protect you. Yi Chen carried Li Shui with one hand and looked coldly at the staircase leading to the 2nd floor of the ethereal, immortal residence. There were 3 suffocating silhouettes walking over slowly. The leader was the Cheng family's head, Cheng Kuanpeng. After seeing the faces of the 3 people, the entire place fell into a deathly silence. The Xiang family's head, the Chu family's head, and the Cheng family's head. The leaders of the 3 wealthy families in Lin City were here. One must know that the 3 of them were people who killed hundreds of millions of people in Lin City. Chu Qingyu, who was next to Yi Chen, almost fainted when she saw that. The Cheng family's head, Cheng Kuanpeng, paused for a few seconds on the bloody mist on the ground. He then looked at Yi Chen and said, Mr. Yi, I'm the Cheng family's head, Cheng Kuanpeng. I didn't mean to offend you. Please let Shui go for my sake. Before he could finish speaking, there was a clear and melodious sound of joints cracking in the silent hall. Subsequently, Li Shui's stiff body fell hard to the ground. Her eyes were wide open, as if she did not expect Yi Chen to dare to kill her after the family's head appeared. Yi Chen flicked his sleeves, looking extremely calm. He looked at Cheng Kuanpeng coldly. How much is your face worth? In an instant, the surroundings were terrifyingly quiet. However, after a short period of silence, there were waves of shock. Yi Chen dared to kill someone in front of the 3 family heads. Chu Qingyu looked at Yi Chen as if she was looking at a lunatic. Her lips trembled as she said, You're crazy. I think you're really crazy. Cheng Kuanpeng's expression was extremely grim. Just when everyone thought he was going to flare up, Cheng Kuanpeng took a deep breath in. He suddenly looked at Yi Chen and said while smiling, Mr. Yi, I invited you to the banquet out of kindness. Is this how you treat me? Gasp! An uproar broke out immediately. Clearly, no one expected Cheng Kuanpeng to speak to Yi Chen in such a tone. One must know that Yi Chen had killed a member of the Cheng family in front of him. No one would be able to tolerate such a scene, right? They were not the only ones. Even Chu Qingyu and Bo looked at Cheng Kuanpeng in disbelief, including the family head of the Xiang family. The family head of the Xiang family, Xiang Songhe, fixed his eyes on Yi Chen. He felt that Yi Chen looked familiar, but he could not remember where he had seen him before. Yi Chen's gaze was calm as he looked at him and said slowly, They deserve to die. Forget it. Let's not talk about this anymore. A hint of malice flashed through Cheng Kuanpeng's eyes before he said with a smile, I've already prepared a banquet. Please follow me upstairs for a chat, Mr. Yi. Everyone was even more confused. However, Yi Chen said coldly, There's no need for a chat. My purpose here today is very simple. Your Cheng family stole my resources and humiliated my family. You even disregarded the blood of your ancestors and begged the foreign sections. After saying that, he took a step forward and fixed his gaze on Cheng Kuanpeng. If you kneel down and kowtow in front of everyone and accept your death, I could consider leaving your corpse intact. As soon as he said that, the entire place fell into dead silence. Countless people stared at Yi Chen in disbelief with their eyes wide open. They thought they had heard wrongly. Where did this arrogant bastard come from? How dare he boast? The upper echelon of the Chung family, who rushed overheard what he said and scoffed. He took a step forward and threw a terrifying, piercing punch at Yi Chun. The fist's seal completely annihilated the surrounding air. It was like a small nuclear warhead that contained a terrifying might. That might caused many of the older generation to tremble in fear. The person who attacked was a beginner-stage golden core upper echelon of the Chung family. Yi Chun seemed to have not seen it. He shook his sleeve lightly, and the former turned into a bloody mist before he could get within 3 meters of him. End of this chapter. Chapter 1395. This series of unforeseen events happened in the blink of an eye. By the time everyone reacted, what entered their eyes was a ghastly bloody mist and the pungent smell of blood. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat. Yi Chun merely shook his sleeves lightly. A beginner-stage golden core powerhouse died. Just like that, it was even easier than killing an ant. When everyone looked at Yi Chun again, there was only deep shock and horror in their eyes. Who exactly is this person? The same thought flashed through countless people's minds. At that moment, the Xiong family's master, Xiong Songhe, who had been staring at Yi Chun, suddenly inhaled sharply. He stared at Yi Chun and said, "Why you're mad, Southern Yi?" The moment that was said, everyone fell silent. Countless powerhouses of the older generation were stunned at first. Then, they looked at Yi Chun. There was only extreme shock and disbelief left in their eyes. Mad Southern Yi. To them, those 3 words were extremely old, but they were like thunder in their ears because those 3 words represented monstrous killing intent. He was a legend who had once ascended to the top of China, suppressed Japan with his sword, swept across the world, and suppressed an era. Apart from them, most of the young people present asked in confusion, "Who's Mad Southern Yi?" Before Yi Chun left Earth, they were still 7 or 8 years old. They had never truly experienced the era that Yi Chun suppressed. Therefore, they did not have any impression of Mad Southern Yi. Yi Chun lifted his head to look at the Xiong family's master, Xiong Songhe. His gaze was calm as his voice that was neither loud nor soft resounded throughout the place. "It's been 17 years. I didn't expect someone to still remember my name. I thought this world had long forgotten me. I wouldn't dare. The Xiong family's master, Xiong Songhe, felt his scalp tingle when he met Yi Chun's gaze. Subsequently, he jogged to Yi Chun and bowed deeply. "It's been 17 years. Mr. Yi is still alive. I'm so excited." His expression was not fake at all as he said in a trembling voice, "Back then, when Mr. Yi killed Yuan Bupo with one hand in Tiannan, I was only a dojo master. However, I was shocked by that battle." "I see." Yi Chun's gaze softened a little. He looked at him and said, "Are you here to help Chung Kunpung fight me today?" No. Xiong Songhe hurriedly shook his head. Yi Chun waved his sleeve as if he was chasing a fly away. "Since you don't dare, step aside. Otherwise, don't blame me for killing without batting an eye." Xiong Songhe retreated to the side obediently upon hearing that. He looked terrified as if he was afraid that Yi Chun would attack him. Chu Qingyu and the other members of the younger generation were dumbfounded. They almost couldn't believe that this was the Xiong family's patriarch, who was on equal footing with Chang Kunpeng and Chu Mo. Before they could react, an old man dressed in black walked out from the crowd. The old man walked forward quickly and knelt on one knee before Yi Chun. He was extremely excited as he looked at Yi Chun. Taizu Long Fist, the current dojo master, He Changsho, greets Master Yi. Plop. Another person took a few steps forward and knelt before Yi Chun. He said with tears in his eyes, "Baji sect master, when Shanhu greets Master Yi. Master Yi, when I was trapped in Japan with my master back then, you were the one who rescued us. I will never forget this kindness." Plop, plop, plop. Under the gazes of Chu Qingyu and the rest of the younger generation, more than half of the older generation knelt before Yi Chun. Some of them cried, some of them choked. In an instant, the scene was dead silent. All the younger generation stared at Yi Chun with their eyes wide open. Who exactly is this guy? Chu Qingyu's beautiful eyes were almost blank as she looked at Yi Chun, who was surrounded by the crowd. She mumbled, "I can't believe he has such influence." After seeing that, the Chung family's patriarch, Chung Kunpeng, could not help but look at the Chu family's patriarch, Chu Mo. Their gazes were terrifyingly grim. They initially wanted to test Yi Chen's identity and strength through this banquet, but they did not expect it to cause such a commotion. Thinking to this point, Chang Kuanpeng could not help but laugh passionately and say, "I didn't expect Mr. Yi to be the legend of China for 17 years, mad Southern Yi. It's our fortune, China's fortune." That's right. After 17 years, Mr. Ye's return to the world will definitely make the world cheer. Chu Mo flattered with a fake smile. Yi Chen waved his hand to signal everyone to leave. He lifted his eyes slowly and fixed his calm gaze on Chang Kuanpeng. "Do you need me to repeat what I just said?" The moment that was said, everyone fell into silence. The smile on Chang Kuanpeng's face froze. Then he said coldly, "Mad Southern Yi, even if my Chang family has a small misunderstanding with you, you don't have to be so overbearing, do you?" Small misunderstanding? Yi Chen scoffed when he heard that. He walked toward the former step by step. "Then, let me ask you, is my former home, Nine Dragons Bay, occupied by your Chung family? Let me ask you, have my close friends, Yi Wen, and the rest been repeatedly humiliated by your Chung family? Let me ask you again," he spoke as he walked. Every question made Chang Kuanpeng's expression turn more and more terrible. In the end, it was as gloomy as water. Seeing that Yi Chen was getting closer and closer to the two of them, the Chu family's head, Chu Mo, said coldly, "Yi, we call you Mr. Yi. Do you really think we're afraid of you?" "That's right." Chang Kuanpeng smirked coldly. "Yi, times have changed. Do you really think you're still the Earth number one? Moreover, look at how sick you look now. I don't think you have much time left, do you?" At this point, he smiled viciously and said, "You came at the right time today. I think it'll be exciting when the world finds out about your death." At the next moment, he suddenly turned his head and bowed heavily in the direction of the stairs. A strange expression appeared at the corner of his lips. "Elder Su, please help us kill this brat." Chu Mo also bowed and clasped his fists. As his voice fell, the space where the staircase was in everyone's eyes was suddenly torn apart. Then, several long dragons of black gas swept over. The several black gas dragons were actually three figures. Waves of vast and gloomy aura filled the entire hall. Plop! Under that might, countless people in the hall felt as if a mountain was pressing down on them. Then, they could not control their bodies and lay on the ground. Their faces were filled with shock. As the three figures landed on the ground, three old men were revealed. The leader looked at Chang Kuanpeng and Chu Mo with a faint smile. "Chang Kuanpeng, Chu Mo, we've sent three people for you. If the two of you go back on your word, you should know what we're capable of. We wouldn't dare." Chang Kuanpeng and Chu Mo immediately shook their heads. As the three of them appeared, the atmosphere in the hall suddenly froze to the extreme. Everyone's hearts were filled with deep shock and horror. Into this chapter, Chapter 1396. Three nascent soul powerhouses. The head of the Xiang family, Xiang Songhe, who had retreated to the side, gritted his teeth as he tried to resist the three pressures. At the same time, waves of shock surged in his heart. He did not expect Chang Kuanpeng and Chu Mo to prepare this in advance. In order to deal with Yi Chen, they had hired three nascent soul powerhouses from Ethereal Palace. One had to know that on Earth today, nascent soul cultivators were people who stood at the top of the world. All of them were the ancestors of sections. Only the foreign sects could produce such a large number of powerhouses. He was not the only one. Even the older generation who had acknowledged Yi Chen earlier were extremely terrified. Elder Su, who was the leader of the three old men, fixed his cold gaze on Yi Chen. "Is this the Earth's number one mad Southern Yi from 17 years ago?" "Elder Su, that's the one." Chang Kuanpeng nodded immediately and said, "This kid is suspected to have stepped into beginner stage nascent soul 17 years ago. Now that 17 years have passed, I'm afraid he's even stronger than before. The three of you must be careful. Don't underestimate him." "Be careful?" An old man behind Elder Su could not help but sneer. "This kid's aura is unstable, and his face is dispirited. It's obvious that he's exhausted his energy. Even if he was once at nascent soul, How much strength can he unleash now? That's right. Another old man looked at Yi Chun and laughed. Even if he's at his peak, there are 3 of us. It'll be easy for us to kill him. Elders, you're right. Chuamo could not help but agree. He then looked at Yi Chun and scoffed. Yi, I'm afraid you didn't expect us to prepare such a big gift for you, did you? Following his words, many people's expressions changed. Many people's expressions changed. The older generation, including Xiang Songha, the head of the Xiang family, smiled bitterly. To them, Yi Chun did not stand a chance against the might of 3 nascent soul stage powerhouses. Chang Kuanping shook his head with a forced smile. What a pity that the Earth's #1 who once suppressed the world is going to die. Moreover, he died in Lin's city. Chu Qingyu secretly shook her head as if she could see Yi Chen's outcome. Are you guys done? Yi Chen placed his hands behind his back and glanced at the few of them calmly. Subsequently, a disdainful smirk appeared at the corner of his lips. You're just 3 beginner-stage, nascent soul trash. Do you think you can kill me? How dare you? You're courting death. You're merely a desolate native of Constellation, yet you dare to look down on us. Terrifying killing intent flashed through Elder Su and the rest's eyes when they heard that. They released the pressure from their bodies and shook their sleeves violently. They turned into a black energy dragon that charged at Yi Chun. His attack directly shattered the space within a radius of 10 feet. The violent spiritual energy of heaven and earth was like a tornado that wanted to destroy everything. Mr. Yi, seeing this scene, many of the older generation could not help but close their eyes. Their faces were filled with despair. The head of the Xiang family, Xiang Songha, smiled bitterly. Heavens, since you've allowed the Chinese legend to return, are you going to let him die so heartlessly? Scram! Yi Chen ignored his attack and spoke softly. Boom! As soon as the word scram was said, the entire hall shook violently. It was as if endless heavenly might had descended upon this place. Then, Elder Su let out a loud cry as his body exploded into a cloud of blood mist that scattered into the sky. At that moment, the entire hall fell into dead silence. Everyone's expressions froze, and their eyes were filled with shock. A dignified, nascent soul cultivator was killed in an instant. Elder Su, the remaining 2 beginner-stage nascent soul cultivators, Chung Kuanpeng, and the rest blurted out subconsciously. Their faces were filled with shock. The rest could not believe what they had just seen. Chu Qingyu covered her red lips with her hand, her beautiful eyes filled with shock. How is this possible? Oh no, this person isn't a beginner-stage nascent soul cultivator. He's clearly not weaker than a great cultivator. At that moment, one of the 2 beginner-stage nascent soul cultivators' expression changed drastically. Then, his figure flashed, and he immediately fled outside. Damn you, Chung Kuanpeng, you bastard! His eyes were filled with hatred. If the 2 of them had not received the wrong information, they would not have underestimated Yi Chen's ability. Bleck! Yi Chen's gaze was like lightning as he flashed through the air. He slashed at the former like a peerless blade. The latter was split into 2 along with his nascent soul. He fell from the sky, and blood splattered everywhere. The former was also a nascent soul cultivator, but he could not resist Yi Chen at all. He was killed like an ant. Another person died. Everyone's eyelids twitched. They did not know what to say. Only their trembling bodies reflected everything. The remaining beginner-stage nascent soul cultivator immediately gave up on escaping when he saw that. He knelt heavily before Yi Chun and said, Fellow, it's a misunderstanding. This is really a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Yi Chen's eyes flashed as he walked towards the former. Fellow, don't go too far. When the other party saw this, his body trembled heavily. Then, he said fiercely, Don't forget that I have Ethereal Palace behind me. If you kill me, Yi Chen's white hair fluttered. Then I'll destroy Ethereal Palace. Then let's die together. The remaining beginner-stage nascent soul cultivator roared repeatedly. His eyes were bloodthirsty, and his voice was shrill. He instantly chose to burn his nascent soul. You overestimate yourself. Yi Chen scoffed coldly. He extended his hand and grabbed him directly. He crushed him forcefully, and his flesh and nascent soul disappeared together. The series of actions was extremely fast. From the moment Yi Chun attacked to the moment he killed 3 people consecutively, it was done in the blink of an eye. In an instant, the entire place fell into dead silence. 3 nascent soul cultivators died, just like that. Everyone could not believe it. Only Chung Kuanpeng and Chu Mo were trembling. Then, they knelt before Yi Chun. "Mr. Yi, spare us, spare us. Mr. Yi, everything we did was forced by Ethereal Palace. Please take into account that we're all Chinese." Chu Mo knelt and begged for mercy. "I've already given you a chance, but you didn't cherish it." Yi Chun remained expressionless. Then he grabbed the 2 of them in his hand through the air. His gaze was cold. "Not only will you die now, but I'll also destroy the families behind you." Bang, bang. 2 balls of golden flames suddenly bloomed at his hands, directly enveloping Chung Kuanpeng and Chu Mo, forcefully burning their bones and scattering their ashes. At that moment, everyone looked up at his peerless demeanor. Their eyes were blank, and only their minds were left with rumbling sounds. On the other hand, the older generation present cried tears of joy. The head of the Xiang family, Xiang Songhe, rejoiced. "Fortunately, I rejected Ethereal Palace's recruitment back then and never added insult to injury to the Yi family. Otherwise," he looked at Yi Chun in shock again after saying that, as expected of the former mad Southern Yi. "You're still so decisive." End of this chapter. Chapter 1397. Looking at the blood all over the ground, everyone in the ethereal immortal residence fell into dead silence at that moment. Everyone had their eyes fixed on Yi Chun. Following Yi Chun's appearance, he killed the Chung family's disciple and Chung Li Shue. Eventually, he killed the 3 beginner-stage nascent soul realm elders of the Ethereal Palace. The series of changes happened in an extremely short period of time, but the shock it brought to everyone was wave after wave. This grand event that was originally an exchange between the wealthy families of Lin City had changed. It was not an exaggeration to describe it as a wedding banquet. The Chung family and the Chu family are finished. Such a thought flashed through many people's minds, and it caused a huge commotion in the entire Lin City. Yi Chun glanced at everyone and said calmly, "From now on, Lin City will bow under my feet again." His eyes were filled with disdain. As soon as he said that, his voice shook the entire place like a mighty heavenly might. Be it the older generation or the younger generation, all of them lowered their heads, not daring to look him in the eye. The Xiang family's master, Xiang Songhe, was the first to bow. Lin City and the entire Tianan belonged to Mr. Yi. It's normal for Mr. Yi to take back Lin City today. "Greetings, Master Yi." The rest of the people immediately reacted and knelt down. Chu Qingyu, who was in the crowd, looked at that scene with an extremely complicated expression. She then looked at Chung Bo, who was scared out of his wits. For some reason, she suddenly felt extremely uncomfortable. Cough, cough, cough. Yi Chun's gaze eased a few times. He took out a tissue and started coughing violently. After he was done coughing, the scarlet on the tissue shocked everyone. Xiang Songhe's body trembled. "Mr. Yi, I'm fine." Yi Chun tossed the tissue into the trash can and turned around to leave slowly. His lonely and weak body seemed to be swaying in the wind. Not long after Yi Chun left, a shocking storm broke out in Lin City again. A piece of shocking news swept through the entire Tianan and even China. The Chung family and the Chu family were destroyed. The 2 wealthy families that had stood in Lin City for 10 years were destroyed. Be it men or women, old or young, none of them survived. When the news spread out, countless people felt that it was unbelievable. One should know that both the Chung and Chu clans had experts at the Golden Elixir Realm. What's more, the Chung and Chu clan had the backing of a colossus, the Ethereal Palace. With such a terrifying background, even if the government wanted to make a move, they would have to think twice. It was at this time that countless forces found out the truth behind the Chung and Chu clan's annihilation. All of them were shocked by the 6 blood-red words on the gates of the Chung and Chu clan. "Sect Exterminator, Mad Southern Yi." As soon as those words were spoken, many forces were stunned, and they couldn't help but rack their brains to recall if there was such a person in their memories. Before the crowd could think too much about it, another earth-shattering piece of news shook the world like a bolt of lightning. The Earth's number one, Mad Southern Yi, who had disappeared for 17 years, had returned. The murder case of the misty, immortal abode soon spread. He killed the Chung family's disciples in public and killed 3 nascent soul elders of the Misty Palace with lightning speed. After that, he even turned the Chu and Chung family masters into ashes. At first, there were people who did not believe it. However, when a video of the misty, immortal abode was posted online, it shocked the world. Countless people were extremely shocked. The Earth's number one, Mad Southern Yi, who once climbed to the top of China, swept Japan, and dominated the world, is back. What? Didn't rumors say that he died on Heavenly Path? How is that possible? Countless ancient forces relayed the news to each other. Mr. Yi, you're really back. I knew it. With your methods, how could you die on Heavenly Path? Ha ha. A legend who used to be invincible on Earth has returned. The heavens haven't destroyed our Earth. The legend still exists, and the legend has returned. The heavens have pity on us. This is the fortune of China and the fortune of all humans on Earth. Some of the older generation of Chinese powerhouses cried tears of joy. Within a day, posts about Yi Qin's return exploded on various forums on the internet. All the posts related to Yi Qin were pinned in red, causing a commotion and heated discussion on the internet. It's him, the once invincible legend of China. The Yi army passed by. Where are the brothers and sisters from back then? The Yi army, Yi Xiao Man, has returned. The Yi army, Yi Bin, has returned. The Yi army. This scene was playing out in various online forums and group chats. A teacher in a high school parent group realized that more than half of the parents in the group had changed their group nickname to Yi Army. The high school teacher warned, "Parents, please change your name back. It's not good. You're not children anymore." After sending that message, she thought that her tone was a little inappropriate, so she typed another sentence. In the end, she realized that the message she sent had a red exclamation mark. In a luxurious hall in Shanghai, a middle-aged man with a blue beard was kneeling on the ground and wiping the floor. In front of him was a plump woman. "Yi, I'm going out to play cards. Wipe the floor well and wash your clothes. If I come back and see that you didn't do it, you'll have to get lost and spend the night." The plump woman left after saying that while eating melon seeds. The middle-aged man smiled bitterly and had no choice but to speed up his movements. At that moment, his phone rang. He opened it and realized that it was a message from an online friend that he had not contacted for a few years. "EBay, look online. Quick!" Seeing that, the middle-aged man said impatiently, "Xiao Man, you know me. That tigress at home is very bossy. Look, that man is back." "Who?" The middle-aged man was stunned at first, but he could not dissuade the other party in the end. He turned on his phone and looked online. The scene that entered his eyes made him freeze. The Yi army passed by. Where are the brothers and sisters from back then? When he saw the red post, Yi Bei's eyes reddened. Too much sadness and grievance turned into tears. Ding-ling-ling, at that moment his WeChat rang. As soon as he picked it up, he heard the voice. "Yi, I forgot to bring my wallet. I'll give you 10 minutes to bring it over." Yi Bei was hot-headed and shouted into the phone, "Damn fat pig, I'll send it to you." There was a moment of silence on the phone. Obviously, the person on the other side did not expect that. A few seconds later, an extremely ear-piercing voice was heard. "Yi Bei, you're really rebelling. You piece of trash. If I didn't like you, you'd be, damn fat pig, I don't want to live with you anymore." Yi Bei scolded him. "Why was I blind to marry into your family back then? All these years, I've been your slave. I've had enough of you. Goodbye." He hung up the phone and walked to the window. He took a puff of his cigarette and wiped his tears before replying, "The Yi army, Yi Bei has returned." Into this chapter. Chapter 1398. The turmoil caused by Yi Qin's return was getting more and more intense. However, there were still people online who asked, "Who is Mad Southern Yi? He's as strong as the Lord of the West, the peerless god of war, the North Sea heavenly king." You're right. Whether it's the peerless war god Luo Tianya or the Northern Sea heavenly king Li Chia, they're the undisputed idols of the people. Another person sneered, "Forgive me for being ignorant, but I really don't know who this mad southern you guys are talking about is." Their mockery immediately attracted many young people's likes and replies. For the young people of their generation, overthrowing and mocking the things of the older generation was the greatest sense of accomplishment. The two idiots upstairs. Someone could not take it anymore and replied, "When mad southern you swept across the world, some of you were still trying to smooth things over." He then added, "As for the Northern Sea heavenly king Li Chia that you guys are talking about, I'm sorry, but he's mad southern Ye's disciple. Even the lord of the western region, Ning Yuqian, has to call himself a junior in front of mad southern Yi." In an instant, people who live in the same era as Yi Chun stood up one after another to slap and refute him, rendering the people who mocked speechless. Because of that, Yi Chen's past deeds were mentioned again. Many young people were shocked when they found out about it. When the news reached overseas, it was already too late. Dong Ying was shocked, Goryeo was shocked, and the U.S. was silent. Then, all the countries, religions, and forces were shocked. Didn't they say that this malefic star died in Heaven's Road? Why did he come back? Damn it. More than 10 years ago, when we were negotiating with the extraterrestrial civilizations, we all hit the Yi family when they were down. With mad southern Ye's vengeful personality, he'll definitely vent his anger on us. What are you afraid of? Behind us are the sects from the outer realms. Meanwhile, in China, when the rising wealthy families and forces recalled Yi Chen's character, they could not help but feel terrified. Right at that moment, another piece of news came out. Mad Southern Yi seems to be injured, and his physical condition isn't very good. I think he doesn't have much time left. Everyone was so shocked by this news that they couldn't help but scream, "What? Mad Southern Yi is about to die. He won't live for long." It's true. According to those who saw him, Mad Southern Ye's face was pale without a trace of blood. He looked like an old man, and he was coughing up blood. Such news spread all over the world, shocking everyone. After all, every country had felt the fear of being dominated by Mad Southern Yi. What a pity. Such an outstanding person is actually about to die. It's truly unbelievable. The countries and forces that had a good impression of Yi Chun felt that it was a pity. After all, Yi Chun was not as ruthless and inhumane as the rumors said. The heavens are jealous of geniuses. With his aptitude, if he has enough lifespan, he might be able to compete with the sects in the outer realm. If he dies, it will be a great loss to Earth. Is the heavens going to destroy the future hope of the Chinese cultivation world? Countless powerhouses of the older generation who had witnessed Yi Chun sweep through the world beat their chests and stomp their feet. Hot tears rolled down their faces. They could not wait to give their remaining lifespan to Yi Chun. The latest news is that after Mad Southern Yi unified Lin City, his subordinates started to collect medicinal herbs everywhere. It seems like they want to extend his life. I heard that too. Many people came to see him, but they were all stopped at the door. That's right. I heard that many famous doctors in China are heading to the Yi family. Some wealthy families even offered supreme medicine. Even big countries like England, America, and France extended an olive branch to Yi Chun, inviting him to go overseas for treatment. It seems like Mad Southern Yi is really going to die. One could say that the whole world was talking about Yi Chun. Some could not accept it. Some felt pity. Some were devastated, but most of them were gloating. Just when the outside world was discussing Yi Chun in the Chung family's villa in Lin City, Tiannan, China. In the quiet bedroom, Yi Hai, Wu Lan, and the rest held their breaths. They watched Yi Chun insert spiritual power to extend Su Yuhan's life. Although Yi Chun had given Su Yuhan the last drop of blood from his heart to give her enough life force, he could not extend her lifespan. Su Yuhan seemed to be full of life, but she was actually weak on the inside. Coupled with the fact that she had just given birth, her vitality was greatly damaged. Her body was getting worse day by day. Meanwhile, Yi Hai and Wu Lan felt sorry for Yi Chun. The reason being, Yi Chun's body was getting worse. Ever since he returned to Earth from the Purple World, He looked like he had aged 20 years. If not for the beauty pill that he had consumed, he might really look like an old man. Looking at Yi-chun, who was extending her life at all costs, Su Yuhan struggled and said softly, Yi-chun, give up. If this goes on, you'll die too. Her eyes were filled with sorrow and heartache. I'm fine. Yi-chun smiled lightly and said softly, don't worry. I know my own body. Nobody in this world can kill me. As soon as he was done speaking, he could not help but cough a few times again. The scarlet blood that flowed out of the corner of his mouth made Yi Hai and the rest cry. Wu Lan's eyes were red as she cried until her voice was hoarse. What exactly did my family do in my previous life? Why are you punishing us like this? She hugged Yi Chin's thigh tightly and cried, Daddy, I don't want you to die. I don't want you to die. Silly girl, how can Daddy die? Yi Chin hugged her in his arms and scratched her nose. Daddy still has to raise you and watch you get married. Big brother. Qian looked at him reluctantly. She could not help but look at Yi-chun and say in a trembling voice, Brother, is there really no other way? Yi-chun smiled lightly as if he could not answer. If he wanted to slow down his body's condition, he had to extract the drop of blood from Su Yuhan's heart before she finished absorbing it. However, how could he do that? At that moment, Xiaoya walked in quickly and said with tears in her eyes, Master, various forces have sent you medicine that can prolong your life. Do you want to take a look? Keep it for now. Yi Chen's smile remained, but he secretly sighed. Unfortunately, the medicine that could prolong her life was useless on Su Yuhan. His situation was different from Su Yuhan's. The latter had too much vital energy and blood, but her lifespan was insufficient. Meanwhile, he had enough lifespan but insufficient vital energy and blood. The Patriarch of Hell was here. He was initially enjoying himself in Japan, but he came all the way here after hearing that Yi-chun did not have much time left. Fellow Yi, try your best not to fight anyone now. The Patriarch of Hell looked at Yi-chun and said in a deep voice, Your vital energy and blood are drying up by the day. If you fight someone forcefully, your vital energy and blood will be exhausted even faster. Once your vital energy and blood are exhausted, your body will be crippled. End of this chapter. Chapter 1399. That's right, Xiaochun. The Patriarch is right. You should accompany Yuhan and think of a way to recover from your injuries. Yihai advised, the Patriarch will think of a way to save you. The Patriarch of Hell added, but you must listen to the Patriarch. If there's anything, you can ask Wu Shuang and the rest to do it. Yi-chun nodded and said with a smile, I know. He lifted his head to look at Yi-wan and the rest after saying that. Rebuild 9 Dragons Bay for me as soon as possible. I want to move in with Yuhan as soon as possible. Brother, don't worry. It'll be done in less than 3 days. Yi-wan nodded repeatedly. Yi-chun suddenly grabbed Su Yuhan's hand and held it gently. He then looked at Yi-hai. Dad, choose a date. I want to get married to Yuhan as soon as possible. Yi-hai's eyes welled up when he heard that it sounded like his last words. He immediately choked and said, I've calculated it. The 15th of this month is a good date. In other words, there's still 10 days? Yi-chun nodded lightly and said, All right, the 15th it is. During this period, work hard, Dad. You can look for Yi-1 and the rest if you have any questions. He waved his hand. All right, you guys may leave. Everyone was afraid that he would be too tired, so they nodded and left immediately. However, the second child that Meng Meng and Yi-chun gave birth to stayed. Su Yuhan took her son. She smiled as she looked at the little boy's facial features that were growing. Yi-chun, you haven't named our son yet. I've thought of a few before. Yi-chun looked at his son and said while smiling, Yi-yang, Yi-tian, Yi-lin, Yi-ming, Yi-wen, which one do you think is good? Su Yuhan thought about it carefully and said, Why don't we call him Yi-wen? I hope that our son will be a gentle child in the future. She could not help but look at Yi-chun in anticipation after saying that. Before Yi-chun could say anything, the little boy in her arms suddenly cried. Apart from crying once when he was born, the little boy had never cried before. However, he was crying because he was given a name. Looks like this little guy doesn't like this name. Yi-chun said in between tears and laughter, That makes sense. My son, Mad Southern Yi, will definitely be a devil who will bring chaos to the 3 realms in the future. How can he be gentle? As the saying goes, when a scholar meets a soldier, he cannot be reasoned with. In this world, you can be anything, but you cannot be a weak scholar. He slowly said, even an ordinary man who is anxious knows to draw his blade and let blood splash 3 feet. Young then? Su Yuhan asked hesitantly. The little guy cried even harder. Eventually, when Yi Chun and Chen Xiaobei reported all the names mentioned, the little girl's mood changed when she heard Yi Ming's name. She even giggled. Little brat. Yi Chun then scolded while laughing. All right, you'll be called Yi Ming from now on. You're amazing when you're quiet. Moreover, you're shocking the world. Ha ha! Hearing this, the little guy became even happier. Su Yuhan could not help but smile helplessly when she saw that. The 2 children take after you. They're restless and wish for the world to be in chaos. Seeing that she seemed to be a little tired, Yi Chan did not disturb her anymore. He picked up the child and said, all right, rest well. If you feel better, try cultivating. After saying that, he carried a child in each hand and walked out. However, he heard all sorts of noises outside. He could not help but look at Tang Ning. What's going on? Master. Tang Ning immediately said, the people outside are clamoring to see you. There are too many people. I can't handle them at all. See me? Yi Chan smirked coldly. I'm afraid they want to know if I'm really dying. Tell them that I won't see anyone. If anyone causes trouble, get Xiaohei to deal with them. Tang Ning nodded and walked out immediately. Soon, she returned with 2 people following her. One of them was a skinny old man in a Chinese tunic suit, while the other was a young man in a suit with a buzz cut. Didn't I say that I won't see anyone? Yi Chun frowned. Tang Ning forced a smile. Just when she was about to explain, she saw the skinny old man take a step forward and take the initiative to say with a smile, Comrade Xiaoye, I'm Liang Angwa from the United Front Department. United Front Department? An undetectable gleam flashed through Yi Chen's eyes when he heard that. He immediately asked Tang Ning to make tea before leading the former into the study. After Yi Chan invited the 2 of them to sit down, he could not help but frown and say, Old Liang, you are in a high position. Why would you lower yourself to visit me? Old Liang smiled lightly. Comrade Xiaoye was the pillar of China 17 years ago. Now that you're back, we're naturally concerned about you. He could not help but look at Yi Chun as he spoke to this point. I heard that Comrade Xiaoye isn't feeling well. Is there anything I can do for you? Cough, cough, cough. Yi Chun covered his mouth with a tissue and coughed violently a few times. He then threw the blood-stained tissue into the trash can and said, Thank you for your kindness, Old Liang. I won't die for now. Old Liang's gaze paused on the tissue for a few seconds before he said, Comrade Xiaoye, you seem to be hostile toward me? He seemed to have thought of something and pretended to say guiltily, To be honest, when Comrade Xiaoye wasn't around, we watched the Star Group and your Yi family suffer because we had our reasons. Reasons? Yi Chan suddenly smiled. I'd like to hear it. Old Liang's expression froze, as if he did not expect Yi Chan to be so direct. He moved his lips, but he did not know where to start. At that moment, a cold voice was heard. Yi, please watch your tone. The person who spoke was the young man standing behind Old Liang. Yi Chan lifted his head to look at him. Who are you? The young man smiled proudly and said slowly, I'm currently the Palace Master of the Dragon King Palace, Fu Yuanhua. The Palace Master of the Dragon King Palace? Yi Chan squinted and said, If I remember correctly, the Palace Master of the Dragon King Palace should be Liang, right? Fu Yuanhua said calmly, That woman has been fired because she's not capable enough to be the Palace Master. Yi Chan's expression gradually turned grim. Sensing his displeasure, Old Liang could not help but say with a smile, Comrade Xiaoye, here's what happened. Comrade Liang violated the rules a few years ago and was fired. She was sentenced to 20 years. 20 years? Yi Chen's heart skipped a beat as soon as he said that. He then said coldly, I really want to know what rules Liang violated to be sentenced to 20 years. 20 years was almost a felony. Based on his understanding of Liang, he did not want to believe it. It's not convenient for me to reveal that. Old Liang secretly frowned. Old Liang, there's nothing inconvenient about it. Fu Yuanhua, on the other hand, looked at Yi Chun and said while grinning coldly, "When Liang was the palace master of the Dragon King Palace, she led the members of the Dragon King Palace to kill the disciples of the foreign sections. She deliberately destroyed the peace between Earth and the foreign civilizations." Boom! Before he could finish speaking, the entire study room was suddenly enveloped by a cold aura. End of this chapter. Chapter 1400. Yi Chun looked at Fu Yuanhua and said while smiling, "You deliberately destroyed the peace between Earth and the extraterrestrial civilization." Great! He thought Liang had committed some serious crime. He did not expect that to be the reason. What infuriated him the most was that Fu Yuanhua was serious when he said that, as if Liang had betrayed the country. However, old Liang was expressionless. Old Liang and Fu Yuanhua's expressions changed when they sensed the terrifying aura coming from Yi Chun. The latter could not help but panic. However, Fu Yuanhua said immediately after thinking that Yi Chun did not have much time left, "Mr. Yi, old Liang and I are only here for 3 things." Yi Chun was expressionless. "Say it." B** starred. Fu Yuanhua was inwardly infuriated, but he still put on a calm face and said, "Ethereal Palace has already reached an amicable agreement with us. You killed 3 elders of Ethereal Palace without permission, so you have to apologize to them." Haha. Yi Chun chuckled. "What else?" Seeing that he was expressionless, Fu Yuanhua continued, "Secondly, you need to tell us everything that happened during the 17 years you disappeared. For example, where did you go? Why did you come back safely?" Before he could finish, Yi Chun said while sneering, "Is there any other fortuitous encounter that caused my strength to skyrocket? It would be best if you're willing to tell us." Fu Yuanhua smiled and said again, "Thirdly, the southern border is being invaded by foreign tribes. We still lack a powerhouse." As he said that, he looked at Yi Chun with an indisputable gaze. "You don't have much time left. As a member of humanity, you should sacrifice yourself for the country. Instead of dying peacefully, why don't you get rid of Scourge for us before you die?" Yi Chun was expressionless after hearing that. "So, you're saying that I should use my remaining days to fight for a peaceful life for you guys? That's what you should do," Fu Yuanhua said. "What I should do?" Yi Chun suddenly scoffed and looked at him word by word. "Do I owe you anything? Have I ever taken a single cent from you?" At this point, his eyes were filled with mockery. "Or should I say, I'm your father? You still have to consider everything for your son before you die?" Fu Yuanhua flew into a rage. "Impudent! How dare you speak to me with such a tone? Who do you think you are?" Yi Chun changed his gentle attitude and looked at him coldly. Then he pressed his palm down on him. "Kneel, you!" Fu Yuanhua turned pale with fright. He tried to use his early-stage nascent soul cultivation to resist, but he found that it was futile. Plop! He knelt hard before Yi Chun. In the end, he prostrated on the ground directly, prostrating himself. Elder Liang's expression changed slightly. "Comrade Xiaoya, you can't." Yi Chun interrupted him and looked down at Fu Yuanhua in a condescending manner. "Who do you think you are?" Even the first palace master of the Dragon King Palace, Niu Shan, did not dare to speak to me in such a tone. "In my eyes, you're just an ant." Yi Chun got up slowly and stepped on his face. "It's just a thought for me to kill you." Fu Yuanhua's face was filled with humiliation and terror. Sensing his killing intent, Old Wang hurriedly said, "Comrade Xiaoya, don't act recklessly. Otherwise what?" Yi Chun lifted his head to look at him. "I don't know what happened up there, but I'd like to ask old Liang-san something first." "Go ahead," old Liang said with a terrible expression. "First," Yi Chun looked at him steadily, "did you let the people of this world know about the group of people who dared to fight and die when they went to the foreign world to fight the great enemy?" Old Liang fell silent. "Second," Yi Chun said, "why did the younger generation forget the blood and tears of their ancestors? Instead, they only remember celebrities and even kneel to the foreign enemy." Old Liang's expression turned grim. Third, Yi Chun took a deep breath in and said in the end, "I've done you guys justice. My star group has done you justice as well. Why do we end up like this?" Old Liang did not answer. "Since you can't answer, ask away. I'll pretend that you guys were never here today." Yi Chun said with a cold smile. Come and look for me when you've thought it through. Don't think that I'm easy to bully just because I don't have much time left. Old Liang could not help but look at Fu Yuanhua on the ground. Then he bang. Yi Chun stomped his foot and stomped Fu Yuanhua deep into the ground. He killed him on the spot and said coldly, What's the point of keeping such trash? I'll just treat it as getting rid of him for free. Old Liang's face was extremely livid. Clearly, he did not expect Yi Chun to be so bold. He took a deep breath in and left. After he left, Tang Ning quietly walked in and said hesitantly, Master, aren't you a little too— It's time to wake some people up? Yi Chun glanced at her expressionlessly and said, Find out where Yang Tian is. I don't believe he's dead. Ever since he returned, he had not heard any news about Yang Tian from Yi Wen and the rest, not even if he was dead or alive. However, he did not believe that Yang Tian was dead. After all, the former had obtained his inheritance. Moreover, with Yang Tian's personality, how could he die so easily? All right, Tang Ning nodded and left. It was night, and the night shrouded everything. Yi Chun called Xiao He and the master, and the servant snuck into the night. Xiao He rose into the sky and said, Master, where are we going? To buy you. Yi Chun lifted his head to look at the south and mumbled, 17 years have passed in the blink of an eye. I wonder how Lin Tai is doing. Before he went to the ancient desolate realm, he sent the souls of his second Uncle Yi Ming, second Aunt Yang Hui, Niu Qing Shan, Old Chun, and the rest into the pregnant women's stomachs. He made the 4 of them reincarnate and promised to enlighten them 18 years later. For this, he even spent 50 years of his lifespan to hide them from the heavens. His goal was to prevent outsiders from spying on them. As for Lin Tai, he followed his wishes and turned him into a ghost cultivator, cultivating hard in the unsealed Fengdu ghost city. 17 years had passed in the blink of an eye. Naturally, he had to keep his promise and find these people. The ghost city of Fengdu was a tourist attraction located in Sichuan many years ago. It had been sealed off before Yi Chun left. However, with the invasion of the foreign enemies, there were drastic changes in China. In the end, this place was occupied by a foreign sect called the Guin Gate. At that moment, there were many formations in the Guin Gate. Apart from a few ordinary disciples on duty, the rest were in the house. After Yi Chun used the Great 5 Elements restriction breaking tactic to break the Guin Gate's protective formation silently, he scanned with his divine consciousness and immediately sensed the situation in the entire Guin Gate. The most powerful person in the Guin Gate was only a perfected nascent soul cultivator. Under him, there were only a dozen or so nascent soul elders. Such a lineup was nothing. Xiao He alone could kill all of them. When Yi Chun's gaze swept across the rooms, his eyes were cold because there were countless mortal women being raped by the Guin Gate's disciples in the rooms at that moment. Most of them were forced. Xiao He's eyes flickered as he said, Master, should I kill them? He knew Yi Chun's physical condition, so he did not want him to do it. Not for now. Follow me to look for Lin Tai first. Yi Chun nodded lightly. Subsequently, he flashed and dashed into the depths of the Guin Gate. He could not help but feel excited. End of this chapter.